and be overwhelmed with instant messages. Then I'll know we're doing our job supporting technology in this country.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live, and we've got open phones for you, as always, if you want to join us here. The number, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Maybe you want to celebrate the not quite record high. It's flirting. Bitcoin is flirting with its record high from earlier this year. I was, I think, in jail at the time Bitcoin hit its record high earlier this year. It apparently was around $65,000.
Did it actually hit that? I remember it getting up to 60.
It was 64.9, apparently, according to a couple of the places I checked today. Because today, Bitcoin, BTC, the original cryptocurrency, hit over $62,800. And so it made me wonder, all right, well, you know, I know we're getting close. Bonnie thought it was like 67,000 was what it hit before, but according to
I checked had like a fake memory of that or something.
Well, you know, I mean, there's different exchanges which will give you different rates too. Yeah. So it's you know, when you say it's the high, you kind of have to.
I checked a few different exchanges. I didn't see anything that was any higher than 65.
Okay.
The highest I saw was 64,900.
Okay.
That was the highest I saw. So if Bitcoin hits $65,000, that, from what I can tell, is going to be a new record high. Now, it didn't make it there today, but it did go up quite a bit. I think this morning, when we were getting up, it was around 60,000, and then this evening it was like 62.
It was like 55 the other day.
Yeah, it's on a run up, and you know, historically, Bitcoin in its good years, of course, almost every year has been a good year for Bitcoin.
Well, there's been a few that haven't.
There's been a few years where it's been
Let's
down.
not go overboard on how good it's been.
I'm not going overboard. I'm
always better than it, you know, being worth a cent.
It's, you know, I think the best way to describe it is it's been, and I don't like describing it as an investment, but it's been the best. If it were an investment, it's the best investment in history. So.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
It's certainly the best investment of the last decade.
Sure.
Hands down.
Absolutely.
And so if you want to comment, you're welcome to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. It is Ian here with you.
And Bonnie.
And Chris.
So we're going to go to your phone calls when you make them about whatever's on your mind. But I definitely want to focus on Bitcoin a little bit. It's always worth talking about just in general, but especially when the price is going crazy. And as I was saying, toward the end of the year, on the years where Bitcoin's really had a big run, like 2017, and then, what was it, I guess, earlier this year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or late last year. It's that end of the year, kind of Christmas time, Thanksgiving time. That's when things start to get crazy. And
Bitcoin Christmas bonus.
Yeah, and it usually starts like around now. And so now there's no predicting Bitcoin. There's no guarantee that it's going to follow this pattern. But if it does, this could be the run-up to 100,000. 150,000?
I hope so.
I mean, it is possible based on things that have happened in the past. Of course, anything's possible. It's also possible to crash to zero. I mean, but that seems highly unlikely at this point, because the more adoption Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies get, the more acceptance it has, the less likely it's ever going to fail. I mean, and it's not going to fail for technical reasons. I mean, because unless quantum computing breaks it someday, which is a whole other story, but it's rock solid as far as its reliability is concerned. It's backed by thousands of nodes all across the entire planet. So, you know, the governments of the world can't take this thing down. It's essentially unstoppable. It's cryptographically secure, so it's unhackable. And if it could be hacked, they would have figured that out by now, because there's a huge reward if somebody could actually hack, Bitcoin.
It's kind of funny because talking about it being hackable or not, and the government system gets hacked all the time.
Oh, you mean the dollars and wire transfers?
Yeah, dollars. People get defrauded all the time through wire transfers. North Korea, I think they got $1 billion. What was it, last year or something like that? Maybe it was a couple years now, but $1 billion in like one heist, basically.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, this idea that like like the crypto somehow, because there's this impression that the media likes to push that it's like it's unstable and it's, you're at risk of like hackers and things. Well, your bank account is actually too. And if you ever look at like there's been plenty of businesses who have lost money, been defrauded, and they can't get the money back because businesses aren't protected. Now, there's a certain amount of time period you might be able to like report something to your bank as a business, but it's like a day probably, as opposed to a consumer who has more protection. So there's a lot of bank fraud that goes on. Money, theft or however you want to phrase it. So it's crypto is if it's your keys, you control it, and not your keys, not your crypto is
and
basically
that's one of the
same.
key differences. I mean, between what happens in the old money system where it's banks, and
you're trusting somebody else. You don't have to trust people with your crypto.
But if you just join with blockchain or something, then you are trusting somebody else with your crypto. So
you're talking about the company. We got to be careful because some companies name themselves after technologies.
Yeah, what's the most common ones? What are they called? Coinbase. That's what I was.
And they also name themselves after a Bitcoin technology term. Yeah. So, but in the case when you say blockchain, you mean blockchain.com, which is an actual company that is a centralized entity. Although to be fair, their main product is a decentralized, is a non-custodial wallet. So they actually do have a non-custodial wallet they offer. Coinbase, on the other hand, is completely custodial. They have custody of your crypto, your dollars, everything that you put on deposit with them. And if they want to freeze your account,
not your keys, not your crypto.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, it's what they call a hosted wallet is basically what Coinbase has. Yeah. And it's sort of like putting your money in somebody else's hands. So if the government wants to seize it or freeze it or whatever, or Coinbase wants to take it and run,
or if it gets hacked.
And that's not, and that's the thing. Like it can, and so it's no different than a bank account.
Right.
When you hold your own crypto on your own non-hosted wallet, right? It's a non-custodial wallet. Then the only thing that can get hacked is, you could potentially get hacked, but you're not at risk of somebody else just walking off with it who you've entrusted.
Right. You could be scammed by, essentially what do they call it? Where the social engineering. Somebody could trick you into giving them your passcode or something like that, or handing over your phone to them, or whatever. So there are like human engineering kind of ways to do this, but by its default, it's very, very safe. Now, interestingly, there have been some governments around the world recently. Of course, El Salvador, the most noteworthy. Brazil is heading in that direction. I don't know if they've passed.
It hasn't passed. It's a proposed bill, as I understand it.
El Salvador earlier this year, not earlier, but this summer, and then ultimately putting it into place in September, launched a government legal tenderizing, if you will, of Bitcoin. So now El Salvador has two different types of legal tender, one the US dollar, two Bitcoin, and it's been an interesting experiment so far. But you've got another bit of news, Chris, about a much bigger government of the world.
It is, and it's not quite legal tender, but
someone big is saying some things.
It's the person. It's more specifically the person whose opinion is one of the, what would you say, probably second leading figure in the world as far as politicians.
He's top three for sure.
So this is a story coming from Bloomberg, and the title of the story is Putin says he accepts crypto's role in making payments. So this is a government effectively, because for people who don't understand how Russia works, I don't know if you call it a dictatorship, but it's basically he's the guy in charge, right? It's not like the United States. I mean, people get to vote in Russia theoretically, but because of how locked down everything is,
I don't think you get many choices.
Your vote doesn't really count.
They'll just grab your other, opposition candidate and throw him in jail.
Prison cell. Yeah.
Right. And when the other guy that you can vote for is in a prison cell, does it really count your vote? I mean,
yeah.
So for people to fully understand this and appreciate this, he's basically saying that Russia is not looking to ban cryptocurrency, which is basically a wink wink saying, yeah, feel free to use it. And if it's a feel free to use situation, sounds like it might even be better off, and you might be better off in Russia if you do stuff with cryptocurrency than in the United States. And don't get me wrong, we already know the United States is targeting people, so
yeah, right here.
That just makes me think that the United States is going to go under, and Russia could become, the superpower.
It sure isn't looking good right now with some empty store shelves out there across the U.S. With supply chain issues causing huge problems.
And they're turning their back on the only thing that could possibly be a solution. to their people, at least. I mean,
Well,
the government's gone.
The thing that could be a solution would be them getting the hell out of people's business, and they're never going to do that. That's for sure. But let's talk a little bit more about what Putin exactly had to say on this here in moments. And your calls and thoughts are welcome. 603-283-6160. And has Biden ever commented on cryptocurrency? More coming up. Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com. Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of FreedomsPhoenix.com get every day. FreedomsPhoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. FreedomsPhoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, FreedomsPhoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to FreedomsPhoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, Phoenix.com. FreedomsPhoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Of course, you can bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. Coming up, what did Vladimir Putin have to say about cryptocurrency? I mean, this is pretty big news. I mean, I don't get impressed by what politicians do or say, but one thing's for sure, they've been in the United States, they've been doing everything they can to take a dump on cryptocurrency. They are attacking the exchanges. They're attacking individuals. They just formed, according to Cointelegraph, a national crypto enforcement team. I don't know if Biden has ever commented on it. I know Trump doesn't like it.
I mean, to Putin's credit, I mean, I don't think that Biden would even recall what it is, even though he's probably been told what it is a million times now. So
yeah, he's old.
It's that, Ponzi scheme.
Well, actually, how did you know? Somebody just said that.
I just saw it. That's why I'm making fun of him.
So, I told the guy in the chat room I think he's a YouTube viewer. He was claiming we're promoting a Ponzi scheme. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
I mean, Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme.
The problem with calling it a Ponzi scheme is that people are using it for transactions, right? Like on a commercial basis.
Yeah, not at all.
And it may be that you haven't seen that because you're not using it personally. But that's like saying that the euro isn't a thing or is a Ponzi scheme because you don't use it, right? In America.
And I think that comes from the thought that you buy crypto just for the number to go up and you to profit off of it.
I think that you're probably right about that, but I invited him to call in and explain what he means by that. I suspect we'll never hear from him because
I'd love for him to call in.
He's one of those chat room people that doesn't actually have the courage to express himself in any sort of conversational manner.
Or he's a Fed.
The phones are open at 603-283-6160. In fact, we're going to go to the phones and then you'll tell us more about what
Absolutely.
Vladimir Putin, I guess the term president of Russia,
dictator,
whatever he had to say about crypto in moments. But first, Dave Ridley is on the line from RidleyReport.com, calling from New Hampshire. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so I was reading the article in the Concord Monitor about the protest at the Executive Council meeting.
You mean the meeting where hundreds of people showed up, and as a result, the Executive Council voted to refuse $27 million in COVID bribe money from the federal government? That meeting?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And the article I noticed was written by a reporter who is on loan to the Concord Monitor from an organization known as Report for AmeriCorps. Now, that does not mean she's working for AmeriCorps precisely. However, her boss is with AmeriCorps.
Okay, AmeriCorps is a federal government make-work agency, basically, as I understand them?
Correct. It's a federal bureaucracy funded with tax dollars, I guess. According to Wikipedia, he's a senior advisor for AmeriCorps and a former FCC senior advisor. And he formed this organization that's sending reporters all over the country, and they're reporting to basically a federal official.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, he probably doesn't deal with her super directly, right? I don't know how many reporters they've sent out. And she does sort of work for the Monitor too, but it feels almost like, in the Russian army in the Soviet army they used to have political officers, who would show up and they'd tell you how to run your tank because Stalin,
just to clarify, are you saying the person who wrote the Concord Monitor article about this is actually being paid by the government?
I don't think so. I think that, I don't see any clear evidence to that effect. I only smell a rat. I can't prove a rat.
I missed one thing. I missed one critical detail. What was the connection to AmeriCorps from the author of the article?
So she works for Report for AmeriCorps, which is connected to the federal bureaucracy AmeriCorps, but does not itself necessarily receive government funding. They listed their funding on their website. They didn't name any government agencies, and I couldn't find anything on the internet that indicated they're receiving government funding. However, I will say this. It's normal to see, disturbing articles in the press that are misleading, but this one was unusually bad. First of all, the reporter did not, 9 people were arrested in the meeting, and I'm not even sure why they were arrested.
Most of them were hit with disorderly conduct charges. I believe one was hit with a resisting arrest charge as well. But yeah, the usual government catch-all. As we know, longtime activists know, whenever the government gang doesn't have anything to charge you with, they hit you with disorderly conduct. So that's what happened there. And we still haven't determined whether or not the first 2 people that were arrested, Footloose Frank and Therese, the nurse, Therese Cornell, we still aren't sure whether those were warrants based on their previous meeting, them speaking up verbally at the previous meeting that they're just now arresting them for.
Yeah, because the cops didn't give them a complaint when they got out of jail.
Amazingly, I don't understand how that is even legal, where you could possibly arrest somebody,
Probably not.
book them, then release them on bail with a court date, and they know what their charge is, but they don't even know, they have no complaint. They have no written complaint.
His I believe Frank is a Footloose.
Yeah.
His bail conditions are actually they're not legible. It's illegible. The handwriting. It's like other, and then you cannot read what it says. Nobody's been able to interpret what this handwriting says. It's not even clear. It's like actual words.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to know what's so bad about the article, though, because I'm really interested. I was there at this protest, and I can say everybody was a peaceful protester. Even Frank Footloose, Staples, was being quiet. I didn't hear him screaming.
Has a big mouth usually, so it's amazing that he was quiet at this protest.
So her headline is that there's some health official that was upset about the ruling. She doesn't mention the arrests in the headline, which is the most important thing that happened, except for the ruling itself. And then she buries the stuff about the arrest. There's no pictures of the arrests. And additionally, there was something else. Go ahead.
Oh,
okay.
Here it is. She did not talk to any of the or she didn't interview, or if she interviewed any of the protesters. She just put that out of her article. There's nothing in the article where she talks to any of the protesters, even though she's surrounded by a sea of real people, not
300
not bureaucrats. Yeah. But she hunts down some official and talks to them to make that what he thinks her whole story.
Yeah, I mean, typical. This is pretty standard procedure. It seems like they always go and they seek out the government to comment, and frequently they will simply leave out,
the average person.
Yeah, anybody who's actually like doing the protesting part, or they will get something. And if they do, usually will be like stuff that will be taken out of context, or it'll be paraphrased, and things will have supposedly been said that were never said. And it's amazing how manipulated the media really is. And most people don't understand that because they've never talked to a reporter.
Yeah, and it sounds like go ahead.
I could not find any other articles on the Monitor page that dealt with the protesters, right? It's not like she was, delegated with one side while someone else was delegated with another side. And I used to work for this tiny, terrible TV station. And when something big would happen, we'd send the whole staff, right? And I remember, we would do lots of different stories about the big event, right?
Well, I can think of one reason why. It's because they can't even think of a negative way to spin what the protesters did to make it seem like there was a reason to arrest them.
Well, plus, and Dave, thanks for the call tonight, as always. Appreciate hearing from you. When he worked for that TV station, that was more than a decade ago. So, the budgets aren't what they used to be. They can't afford to send more than one reporter to these things. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The former student accused of shooting and killing 17 people at his Florida high school in 2018 is pleading guilty. The rampage was one of the deadliest school shootings in American history, and it led thousands of students to campaign for tougher gun control laws. FSN's Rachel Silverman has that story.
Attorneys for Nicholas Cruz say he intends to plead guilty on all 17 counts of premeditated murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. The defense team is seeking 17 consecutive life sentences for Cruz. Prosecutors are asking for the death penalty. Cruz has also been charged with attacking a law enforcement officer while in custody months after the shooting. Jury selection in that case has proven traumatic, with several prospective jurors crying after seeing Cruz and Cruz himself sobbing in the courtroom.
A British lawmaker is dead after being stabbed while meeting with constituents. The attack east of London killed Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess. Here's UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
The reason I think people are so shocked and saddened is, above all, he was one of the kindest, nicest, most gentle people in politics.
A knife has been recovered and police have arrested a 25-year-old male suspect. The motive remains unclear. U.S. travel restrictions will be lifted for fully vaccinated international travelers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries on November 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. Including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travelers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People traveling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travelers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health.
Retail sales in the U.S. rose in September despite supply shortages and higher prices. The Census Bureau data defied the expectations of economists. Our U.S. correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
Sales by retailers, including restaurants and bars, rose a seasonally adjusted 0.7% from the previous month. The data shows that consumer demand remains healthy, despite supply constraints, the Delta variant, and the end of enhanced unemployment benefits. The rise in sales also partly reflects higher consumer prices, which advanced 0.4% in September from August and 5.4% from a year earlier. Kate Fisher, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
Oh, hey, it's Free Talk Live. The number is 603-283-6160. That's what happens when I don't mute the microphone.
Sorry, I was like, did that come through my headphones?
It did. Well, yeah. So you can join us here. What I was saying, what you were laughing about, Bonnie, was that apparently the spokesbureaucrat for Joe Biden is now defending inflation.
Wait, what?
Yeah, well, I've got the story. We'll tell you about it coming up here. But like I said, we got to talk about the Putin's talking about crypto. That's on the way. Of course, open phones, as always, where you can bring up anything that you want. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live brought to you by Bitcoin.com. And yes, Bitcoin, I'm not going to say it scraped its all-time high, but it came within striking distance. I mean, it was, nearly $63,000 today, and its all-time high was $65,000. I mean, that's the kind of, $2,000 for Bitcoin. That's 10 minutes sometimes. Like it can jump up that fast, that far in a very, very short period of time. So I mean, by the end of this show, we might be at a new record high. Although it is down a little bit. It's down around 60 right now. So you never know what's going to happen. We will keep you informed about that. But if you want to get the latest news headlines about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, head on over to news.bitcoin.com. They've got it, and it's updated every single day, probably multiple times daily. It's a great site for the latest info anytime you need it over at news.bitcoin.com. And if you want to get the basics about Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, just click on Get Started at the top of bitcoin.com. You can watch some introductory videos there, as many of them as you want, but the first one's only 3 minutes long, so it will not take a long period of time. That's bitcoin.com. Click Get Started. As we go to your phone calls and thoughts, Sean is in New Hampshire calling us from Concord. Sean, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hey.
An issue that recently came to my mind, and I was able to give it a lot of thought, was before things are going really wrong in the country, before things are going really wrong where you have people busting out into a riot from a peaceful protest to a riot, and before a police officer is shooting a non-violent person because they're scared, before all that, what a problem that I noticed that is the root of it is people's trust of the police ends up being the problem that causes police to be fearful.
Do you trust the police, Sean?
I struggle with it, just like everybody else.
Well, you're a smart man if you don't trust the police, because the police are a bunch of liars for the most part. Now, there may be a few honest ones out there, but they're, by and large, they're actually encouraged to lie in their trainings. They're actually, that's part of
encouraged. They're trained to lie.
That's what I'm saying.
Would you say that the reason that a woman got beat by her husband was because she stopped trusting him, and that was like a determining factor of to why he beat her?
Yeah,
really no difference. Yeah, you would.
I don't think he understood the question.
One of the things that I noticed is group stalking.
Gang stalking?
Group stalking.
What do you mean by
Groups
that?
of people stalking a person.
When
Not
you say
just
you've
one
noticed
person.
that, what do you mean?
Like law enforcement and even the court system fails to understand when more than one person is in on stalking somebody.
Oh, well, I mean, you don't. Would you agree, Sean, that it's actually law enforcement that is the biggest gang stalker out there? I mean, they're the ones who are stalking people. They're the ones who are arresting peaceful people.
Before they do it, it's people on the street doing it.
Yeah. There's people have called us about this, and thanks for the call, Sean. I appreciate it. People have called about this gang stalking thing in the
He
past.
didn't use that term. He's being vague.
But that's
so
what he's referring to. And it just seems like it's something that a lot of paranoid people believe in. I'm not saying it's impossible that there's some other group out there besides the police that could be stalking you. I mean, obviously, if you're that interesting of a person, but I think a lot of the times the people who believe they're being gang stalked are not really worthy. They're not they're not with it, but they're not really worthy of being stalked for anything. They're not particularly wealthy. They're not particularly intelligent. They don't have the Colonel's secret recipe that they're trying to keep secret. They're just afraid of whatever, and I'm not saying there aren't people out to get you, but maybe
it may not the people that you think.
Yeah. It seems like it's most likely to be the government that's going to be stalking you.
Yeah, it's odd because it seems, most likely that the government's going to be stalking you, putting, watching you.
They want to know about your bank activity, over $600 now.
Asking companies to give you give them information on you. And it's interesting because last night we had a friend get arrested. He
was thinking the same thing, actually.
He called his wife or girlfriend, I don't know. I think that's his girlfriend, and she showed up, and he said, "My wife just pulled in." They ran up and grabbed her, threw her on the ground, broke her face, and broke her phone she was recording them with.
Yeah, that's a real gang. They're called the police.
Yeah, it's more like a real gang. Stalking a person and his family.
They have uniforms. They have logos.
I didn't even think that could happen in well, I guess it was pretty close to Manchester. I that's the kind of thing I typically expect out of the Manchester cops, but I was not expecting that out of Hillsborough.
Well, Hillsborough's a particularly corrupt cops.
I know they're bad.
Hillsborough.
I didn't realize they were as bad as Manchester, though.
I mean, there's bad cops everywhere.
That's true.
You just never know which
Seems like small
thug.
towns like that are more likely to have, like a bunch of thugs.
You never know which thug's going to show up.
Maybe not more likely than a city, but still just as likely.
If you're lucky, you get one that kind of follows the book. And if you're not lucky, you get one that smashes your face in and breaks your cell phone. And that's apparently what happened.
Exactly what happened.
To her.
Yeah,
So,
I actually couldn't believe how much blood there was.
Yeah, it was shocking.
And the bones that were broken, literally, this guy pummeled her face.
And this woman's
she
like
broke
100
bones.
pounds, and she was running away from him.
And she wasn't even being arrested for anything.
It was crazy. The cop never said, I'm a cop, or
you're under arrest.
You're under
That
arrest
didn't
or
happen.
anything. He just
Yeah, she thought some
beat her up.
psycho was running at her because there was a psycho running at her.
And mind you, this is in a parking lot right near a store, grocery store. So it wasn't like, it wasn't. It was crazy. It was just it's a crazy story.
Yeah, and apparently she was recording, but the cops smashed her phone. So who knows if that will be recoverable, that video.
That phone had a case on it. So he really had to, he didn't just like take it out of her hand and drop it.
That's shocking.
That was like a smashing of the phone kind of situation, like destroying evidence intentionally kind of situation.
It's something you would expect out of Russia, but it actually happens all the time here in the United States. Let's get back to the original story, Chris. You had opened up the show tonight with news that Vladimir Putin is apparently a cryptocurrency believer. Meaning that he's apparently said that cryptocurrencies have value, which is different than what people like Donald Trump have said, or the head of J.P. Morgan Chase, who says that Bitcoin is worthless.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost as if he thinks it just hasn't gotten big enough for him to take advantage of yet, because he's got so many billions, but that he's looking forward to the day where he can actually use it himself.
Vladimir Putin.
Interesting.
That's kind of how it sounds to me. But let's actually read some of this, and you can interpret it yourself.
But still, it does sound better than the person that people act like is such a great businessman, Donald Trump, saying this thing is evil.
Oh yeah, he hates crypto. He loves the dollar, hates crypto.
How can you think he's a great businessman? Like, you have to be retarded.
He's a failure.
He's a failure.
Yeah, he pretty much he's failed at every business. Or am I thinking of Bush?
He failed. Donald Trump got a lot of money from his daddy.
Yeah,
and that's why he's.
It seems like that's the people they like to put in power for whatever reason. The establishment keep putting people in power that fail in business. It's
maybe they owe somebody something because they still have money.
They're controllable, probably. It's what it comes down to. Russian President Vladimir Putin signaled tolerance of cryptocurrencies, which are drawing increasing scrutiny from regulators around the world amid fears they can be used for money laundering and criminal activity.
They always have to include that. Yep. They always have to include that line of, it's scary.
Well, he must be a huge, terrible guy, Mr. Putin, if he's supporting cryptocurrency. Well, yeah, it's true. But
he's probably a terrible guy. But we'll tell you more about what he actually said here coming up. The number 603-283-6160. You can join us here on Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths, and I want yours to be as clean as possible with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Open phones if you want to join us here. The number 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Chris. And, of course, you can bring up what you want. That is the point here on Free Talk Live. We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts. Also, want to make sure you know about Intercoin. It is a way that you can help yourself launch your own currency and raise money using your own token. Intercoin.org has now launched worldwide. So if there's a token you want to launch or an app you want to build for your community, you can go to intercoin.org, enter your email, and the team will get in touch and learn about your needs. And while you're there, if you want, you can get some Intercoin investor tokens for yourself. Head over to intercoin.org. As we go back to the phones, we still got to get to Putin and what he had to say about crypto. And Chris will share that with us in just a moment. But first, Jesse is on the line, and he previously had called from Virginia, but apparently you're in New Hampshire tonight. So
welcome to New Hampshire, Jesse.
Congrats, Jesse.
Thanks, man. It was kind of a grueling 11-hour drive, but I made it. Actually got to meet with some of the people from the Free State Project, including there with nobody tonight, which is pretty cool.
Right on.
It's always cool to talk to nobody.
Mr.
Yeah.
Nobody, Crypto 6 changed his name from Rich Paul.
Yeah, he's always fun to talk to. Unfortunately, I'm prohibited by my ridiculous bail conditions from being able to speak with him, but I'm glad you were able to talk to him. I heard you were at the crypto meetup. Is that right?
Yeah, the crypto meetup at that Indian place.
Nice.
Which, good that you guys put out the calendar. It makes it a lot easier for somebody that's coming from super far away and not knowing anybody here. And
yeah, I'm glad
really helpful.
I'm glad we updated the calendar because it was usually the Friday crypto meetups are at Foking great, but this is I think the first time where it had to be migrated somewhere else
because they were closed due to a chef getting sick or something.
Yeah, one of the chefs got sick, so they're closed this week. So actually, Social Sunday will also be moved to Indian Curry as well.
Oh, wow.
Indian Curry is still great.
Nice thing about the Indian place here in Keene is it's open 7 days a week. That guy never stops working.
It's 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. if I'm not mistaken.
He's amazing. I think it's a little bit later than that, but yeah, he's open for 12 hours at least a day.
It's definitely 9 p.m.
Yeah, I think it's like 9 to 9 or something. But
oh, you might be right. It might be 9 to 9.
Because he has to have the food ready, and
Yeah.
he probably gets there at 7. He's probably there,
yeah.
prepping or whatever. He's one of the hardest working guys, probably the hardest working guy in this area. Anyway, and he takes cryptocurrency, which is super cool.
He does
for his Indian food, and that's just one of a myriad of restaurants, and we've got like a car repair place, a general practice doctor now, a dentist. There's a bunch of businesses, like a wide variety. A couple of convenience stores, 2 or 3 convenience stores.
Barbershop. The hair salon.
Right, yeah.
The Mighty Moose Mart on Route 101.
There's a couple of convenience stores. Yeah, that's right.
Now, Jesse, are you into crypto, or are you just kind of like feeling it out?
I'm just kind of feeling it out. I've known about it for a while. Unfortunately, at the moment, all my money is tied up in fiat. So I'm gonna look to diversify my investments. Interested in getting the gold backs too. So
Nice.
where is online the only place you could buy the gold backs?
I mean, there's sometimes people who are willing to sell the ones that they have. You just kind of have to ask.
It's pretty easy to get them. If you come out to like a nightcap or a crypto meetup or a social Sunday, you just ask around. There's probably somebody that will sell them to you.
I know that Captain Kickass, one of our co-hosts, has been selling full sets of the New Hampshire Goldback. So if you're looking for the full set, you should probably, maybe Chris could give him a ping and let him know to bring one to the nightcap tonight. For our listeners that don't know, we have a regular Friday night meetup here that happens basically at midnight, and it's essentially started as last year as a protest against the stay-at-home order, so-called stay-at-home order, and so that's like continuing just as basically a weekly party. So how long are you up here for, Jesse? What's your plan?
So I'm gonna stay here till at least Tuesday. I might end up staying a little bit longer.
Right on. Well, there's now I don't know if you checked the full New Hampshire calendar. There's one calendar that's specific to Keene, and then there's another one for all of like New Hampshire, basically. Did you go to that one too? That's a good one to check out.
Yeah, I think I found that one. It had the some stuff from the Seacoast, and then Manchester, and all different events like.
Yep.
There's usually an event from each of those places.
Yeah, make the trip around and get a lay of the land, meet a whole bunch of people. It's super easy to do because there's always stuff going on here. And congrats, man. Anything else you want to share tonight?
Yeah, I'm just excited to be here. I first heard about you guys from this radio show, so you guys must be doing a good job.
Great, man. I'm glad to have you out there, and thanks for the call tonight. Thank you, Jesse, and enjoy the stay here in New Hampshire. It's a perfect time of the year, too, to be up here. I mean, oh, my God. He's basically in
beautiful.
Peak. It's peak right now as far as it's probably hard as hell to find a hotel room.
Oh, yeah.
But
I think they were $190 a night is what I was hearing.
Yeah, it's also
hotel
peak
rooms
rates
that are like $100 a night usually or less.
They're 200, yeah.
200.
Yeah. If you can find one, because everybody wants to have their wedding right now, and it's like... Maybe Airbnb's a better bet, Maybe you can find something there. But either way,
I think everything is sold out.
Yeah, it's probably tough. So anyway, great time to come up and check things out. Of course, anytime's a good time because there's always freedom-loving people here in the Shire. And you should be here too if you love liberty, if you actually care about freedom, if you love crypto and you're a liberty-minded person. Why not go where there's an actual community of people who agree with you? Why not go to the place where you can actually spend cryptocurrency in real life?
Why not go to a place where I literally flipped off the governor the other day? That's how involved you can. He was looking at all of us.
Okay, nice.
And multiple people were doing it.
That's awesome.
He waved.
Good times. So we were talking about crypto. We were talking about Russia, specifically Vladimir Putin. He said some positive things about cryptocurrency. What do you have to say?
Yeah, surprisingly, and again, this is positive for a politician, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this is definitely coming from his perspective on it. It's like it's not yet ready for me to use, but it seems. I don't know if I don't think he used the word cool, but like that's kind of what he was saying because again, politicians, right? Cryptocurrency has the right to exist. This is what he said: has the right to exist and can be used as a means of payment. Putin said in an interview with CNBC. So this is basically his blessing of using cryptocurrency in Russia.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird to say that like a thing has a right.
Well, this is in the context of other governments who are cracking down on it, like the United States. Mm-hmm. But it's also under the same umbrella of some countries like El Salvador and Brazil seem to be getting on board with saying crypto is okay to use too. So with CNBC, that was posted on the Kremlin's website Thursday. Still, he cautioned it was too soon to talk about using digital currencies for trading oil and other commodities. Again, this is like, that's what he does basically. So from his perspective of billions of dollars, there's not quite enough consumption or use of crypto. I think in order for him to be like using it as a primary means of doing large transactions, because I mean, oil, we're talking billions of dollars.
Maybe he just doesn't know about Monero and how he could be doing.
No. I mean, what's the crypto market cap right now? It's
I'll find out for you. It's probably getting close to 2 trillion would be my guess.
Yeah,
here.
I mean, you're talking about a man who runs a country.
I'm sorry, 2.4 trillion.
Yeah, 2.4 trillion. So it's probably not yet enough people using it, because if he started using it for like oil, then all of a sudden it's going to like really cause crypto to explode, right? So it's probably not ready quite for that.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of deals these oil deals are, but I'm imagining they're in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, as far as when people are buying and selling.
He doesn't have to start with that. Just like buying guns or something, he could use Monero and nobody would know.
That's true. Of course, the thing is, the big objection that people have with using cryptocurrency as a day-to-day business thing is that it is volatile. I mean, the price of crypto went up like 5% just today. I say crypto. The price of Bitcoin went up like at least 5% today, and then it dropped a few $1,000s, after that. So you never really know what it's going to do. Obviously, if it keeps going up in price, then it's like, okay, everybody's happy. But
and who cares if you're a multi-billionaire?
Well, because
dictator?
there's certain margins when it comes to buying something like oil. They're probably not marking it up.
That's why I said we're thinking smaller, like buying a bunch of guns for your military.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I mean, that's a huge industry too, so I'm not sure if that works either.
I get what you're saying, Bonnie. It's just I'm just giving you the main objection here from business owners, and it's a legitimate objection. I mean, they if you're buying a product, you have to sell that product for more than you got it for, and if the price is changing before you can cash it into something that's more stable, it can be a very difficult thing to kind of deal
I've never
with.
heard this argument, like if you're super rich, you probably shouldn't get into crypto. I've never heard that.
I'm sorry, but I'm just not buying that argument. I understand that fear, but just as a business owner who uses cryptocurrency all the time, it's like it just doesn't add up, because even if you sometimes lose money, it's kind of like a stock, right? I mean, yeah, it's going to go down sometimes, but as long as it's going up more than it goes down, you're going to make money off it.
Sure.
And you're going to make more money off it than if you hold dollars.
And you and I both know that cryptocurrency has trended upward over time. But that doesn't stop somebody from being irrationally perhaps afraid of what might happen.
Right. Okay, so you're saying it's irrational.
Definitely.
I thought you were saying it's rational.
Based on the past, but you don't... I mean, it is also rational in that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, there could be a huge crash. There's more coming up here in moments. This is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.fm.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The former student accused of shooting and killing 17 people at his Florida high school in 2018 is pleading guilty. The rampage was one of the deadliest school shootings in American history, and it led thousands of students to campaign for tougher gun control laws. FSN's Rachel Silverman has that story.
Attorneys for Nicholas Cruz say he intends to plead guilty on all 17 counts of premeditated murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. The defense team is seeking 17 consecutive life sentences for Cruz. Prosecutors are asking for the death penalty. Cruz has also been charged with attacking a law enforcement officer while in custody months after the shooting. Jury selection in that case has proven traumatic, with several prospective jurors crying after seeing Cruz and Cruz himself sobbing in the courtroom.
A British lawmaker is dead after being stabbed while meeting with constituents. The attack east of London killed Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess. Here's UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
The reason I think people are so shocked and saddened is, above all, he was one of the kindest, nicest, most gentle people in politics.
A knife has been recovered and police have arrested a 25-year-old male suspect. The motive remains unclear. U.S. travel restrictions will be lifted for fully vaccinated international travelers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries on November 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. Including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travelers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People traveling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travelers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health.
Retail sales in the U.S. rose in September despite supply shortages and higher prices. The Census Bureau data defied the expectations of economists. Our U.S. correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
Sales by retailers, including restaurants and bars, rose a seasonally adjusted 0.7% from the previous month. The data shows that consumer demand remains healthy, despite supply constraints, the Delta variant, and the end of enhanced unemployment benefits. The rise in sales also partly reflects higher consumer prices, which advanced 0.4% in September from August and 5.4% from a year earlier. Kate Fisher, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. World Food Day will be marked globally this Saturday. The UN's annual focus on food insecurity, exacerbated now by both climate change and COVID-19. The rise in food prices in many countries is also adding to the fear of growing hunger even in the developed world. This year alone, a drought in Kenya and flooding in South Sudan led to warnings of famine there, but political crises in countries including Afghanistan, Haiti, Yemen and Zimbabwe also fueled fresh anxieties. And then there is COVID-19. Jim Lindsay is with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations.
The countries that are facing the greatest food insecurity around the world these days are also the same countries that are being hit very hard by COVID-19. We still have the problem of the vast inequality in terms of vaccine distribution. They're almost non-existent in lower income countries. I think I've seen numbers saying on average less than 10% of the population in these countries has had any kind of vaccination for COVID-19. And of course, these are countries that also lack robust public health systems to take care of people who do fall ill.
World Food Day was first observed in 1945 to mark the creation of the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, and there will be events taking place in more than 150 separate countries on Saturday. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The former student accused of shooting and killing 17 people at his Florida high school in 2018 is pleading guilty. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson reacts to the stabbing death of Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess. And U.S. travel restrictions will be lifted for fully vaccinated international travelers beginning on November 8th. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
It's the Onion Radio News. Starbucks begins its sinister Phase 2 of operation. This is Doyle Redland reporting. After a decade of aggressive expansion throughout North America and abroad, Starbucks suddenly and unexpectedly closed its 56,423 worldwide locations today to prepare for what insiders call Phase 2 of the company's long-range plan. Cynthia Valcamp, Starbucks head of marketing, made this brief statement at a press conference earlier today.
We have enjoyed furnishing you with coffee-related beverages and are excited about the important role you play in our future plans.
Existing Starbucks franchises across the nation have been shuttered with high-strength titanium, and the well-known Starbucks logo has been slightly altered to present the familiar mermaid figure as a cyclopean mermaid whose all-seeing eye forms the apex of a world-spanning pyramid. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. And joining you in the studio, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
603-283-6160 with just wrapped up a story about Vladimir Putin, the premier, president, dictator, whatever you want to call him, of Russia, saying some somewhat positive sounding things about cryptocurrency. Not that they're going to officially adopt it to make oil payments with.
Well, not yet anyway. He did actually, explicitly. I never finished that last thought, or last thing he said, it effectively was. But it was in regards to trading oil and other commodities that form the bulk of Russia's exports, meaning it basically, there's too much money and you can't use crypto yet or Bitcoin because the market isn't big enough for it. You would undermine it if you basically tried.
Well, according to the CNBC article, he said, I believe it has value, but I don't believe it can be used in the oil trade.
Yeah.
He said cryptocurrency is not supported by anything as of yet. It may exist as a means of payment, but I think it's too early to say about the oil trade in cryptocurrency. But then he went on to talk about the U.S. dollar, and he did not mince words on Russia's attempt to move away from reliance on the dollar for trade. He said, quote, I believe the U.S. makes a huge mistake in using the dollar as a sanction instrument. We are forced. We have no other choice but to move to transactions in other currencies. In this regard, we can say the United States bites the hand that feeds it. This dollar is a competitive advantage. It is a universal reserve currency, and the United States today uses it to pursue political goals, and they harm their strategic and economic interests as a result. In June, according to CNBC, Russia announced it would drop U.S. dollar assets from its sovereign wealth fund. So, Russia's got gold. They've got dollars. They've got, these different things. Well, not dollars anymore. Apparently, they are getting rid of their dollar holdings.
Dropped it.
Yeah, so
Good.
That's...
More countries should, take a stand against it, I think.
Yeah, that's a big strike against the U.S. dollar.
And unlike some of the smaller countries that have, fought back, the United States not invading Russia, So.
No, they're never going to. I mean, it'd be insane. So this leads to the next story that I've got here from Mediaite.com, reporting on this spokesbureaucrat for Joe Biden. Her name is Jen Psaki, and she, according to Mediaite, is defending inflation.
What?
Yeah, couldn't believe I saw this. This is an amazing headline. Now, she's interviewed on CNN and saying that it's a good thing because people are buying more goods. Let me get to the actual quote here. So the host of the show asks her, he says, I get the larger point that when we're talking about economics, we're coming out of recession. Doesn't look like that to me. It looks like things are going into a recession. But going on, this is CNN, of course.
Yeah, right.
their propaganda
Twisting
pieces.
it, yeah. Manipulating reality.
The host Jake Tapper said further, but doesn't it seem tone-deaf to say that rising prices and empty grocery store shelves are high-class problems? Isn't that a bit dismissive? Unquote. He was speaking in reference to a Twitter comment by Jason Furman, the former chairman of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, who said on his Twitter, quote, most of the economic problems we're facing, inflation, supply chains, etc., are high-class problems. We wouldn't have had them if the unemployment rate was still 10%. We would instead have a much worse problem. Huh?
What is the unemployment rate right now? Higher than 10 or lower?
No, it's lower. At least in New Hampshire.
I don't know
if
if it's
3%.
I'm curious what it is across the country, and then I'm also curious as to are people still not? Are they not? And then the other question is unemployment affected by government basically paying out handouts, welfare?
Well, I mean, how tone deaf do you have to be to say that these problems are high-class problems? I mean, have you seen the photos of these empty grocery store shelves? It's not high-class people that are going to the grocery store, Walmart Supercenter to do their shopping. They've got personal chefs to do shopping for them, right? Like the average billionaire isn't walking around Walmart pushing a shopping cart. So the average person that's shopping at these places, they're the ones that have to deal with this. So here's what she said in response to this host on CNN. This is the spokesperson for the White House. Quote, well, that's not exactly what the tweet said, nor the retweet of the original tweet, which is what we're talking about here. The fact is the unemployment rate is about half of what it was a year ago. So there you go, Bonnie. It's lower. So a year ago, people were in their homes. 10% of people were unemployed. Gas prices were low because nobody was driving. People weren't buying goods because they didn't have jobs. Now more people have jobs. More people are buying goods. That's increasing the demand. That's a good thing. At the same time, we also know the supply is low because we're coming out of the pandemic and because a bunch of manufacturing sectors across the world have shut down because ports haven't been functioning as they should be. These are all things we're working through.
I mean, some of these problems that we actually have are the result of government's regulations. For example, in the UK, they basically they basically kicked out all of their Eastern European drivers, truck drivers. So they don't have enough truck drivers now.
Yep.
And it's not just there, but
that's true here too.
Yeah, it's all over the world. They're doing these, governments are doing these things that are causing a lot of these problems.
There are 16. We were Ari and I did like a deep dive. We read an interesting story from Yahoo actually about the supply chain issues this week, and they said that for every container, right, like these big shipping containers that are on these cargo ships, that is ready to for every truck coming to pick up a container at one of these ports, there are 16 containers per truck. They can't handle it. There's not enough truckers, and this is with the ports moving super slow. The ports can't handle the incoming load of containers, so there's literally like 500,000 to 1 million 20-foot shipping containers sitting on cargo ships off of the coast of Los Angeles right now. Yep. And there's even, there's more. I don't know how many total, but there's some off the coast of Savannah, Georgia, some off the coast of New York and New Jersey. I mean, there's an S-ton of product out there that is waiting to get onto these trucks, get to the stores, get into people's homes, and it's just not moving. And now there's headlines about how, Biden's going to help. Biden's got a plan about this.
Is he going to issue more visas like the UK did? 3-month visas that is
for workers, you mean?
Which is not going to attract anybody basically because you can't invite people to your country and then kick them out 3 months later.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think they even mentioned visas because they're making a big deal about, what's Biden going to do?
Where are we going to get the truck drivers from?
Great question.
You got to import, it's a terrible way of phrasing it, but you got to have people immigrating to your country, especially a wealthy countries, if you're going to increase the number of truck drivers. That's just end of story. There's no other way to do it.
And dock workers and factory workers and all these jobs that Americans apparently don't want because they're all available right now.
Yeah, I mean, we have a low unemployment. How do you solve that problem? You can't hire people. You can't hire the programmers to come and drive trucks. They're not going to do it.
Yeah. So what's the big plan? Well, according to Axios.com, the Biden administration is working with private companies, port officials, and unions to keep the Port of Los Angeles running 24/7. That's their big plan.
Yeah, that's not a solution. That's not going to increase the number of truck drivers or dock workers or, increase the size of the physical port,
But, I mean, when I read this, I'm like, wait, you telling me they weren't running 24/7 already? They've got a stack of 60 cargo ships sitting out there in the ocean, and there's a huge backlog of units that need to get moved, and you're only running, 12 hours a day? You're running 16 hours a day? You're not running 24/7? And Biden had to get involved in this?
And that's kind of bizarre because there are ports that run 24/7. So it's not like they can't run them 24/7.
It must be a Los Angeles rule or something. It must be some sort of
government regulation.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. There's all these stupid regulations out there all over the place that just basically have no purpose other than like hindering
productivity,
exactly.
Economy.
In like what you were saying, when Jen Psaki was saying last year, people were at home, they didn't have jobs, and they weren't buying goods. That was also the government's fault, not COVID's.
Absolutely. The number here is 603-283-6160. So that's the big solution: is run the port 24/7.
Oh man.
I mean, it'll help, but you really needed to get the federal government involved to make that choice, to make that decision.
If they don't have enough truck drivers after it gets unloaded,
Where's
still
it gonna
doesn't
go?
work.
Yeah, it's a great point. More on the way here. You can join us. Take control of the airwaves. It's Free Talk Live.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
If you're looking for work, there's a piece of paper more important than your resume. It's the cover letter attached if you're snail mailing, or the email to which you attach your resume. Make it 4 short paragraphs. Paragraph 1, say that you're applying for work. The person you're sending to gets a ton of mail about all sorts of things. If you have a password, that's your first sentence. Tom Nelson tells me you and I should meet. Paragraph 2, what you do and how that relates to the opening. Be as specific as possible. Paragraph 3, why you want this particular job. I'm originally from Boston, so I know the market well. I have family and friends in the area, so this would be a homecoming for me. Paragraph 4, unless the job posting stipulates no calls, and I will call you to follow up. Thank you in advance for your time. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want to discuss. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can bring up anything. That's the point here. Although we're talking about shortages right now, we're talking about supply chain issues. And with you in the studio tonight, it is Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
Coming up, Liberty in Our Lifetime. It is a new event that is being put on by the Free Private Cities Foundation. Our very own Mark Edge is going to be speaking at this event coming up this Saturday, October 16th. You won't be able to attend in person unless you already got your tickets because they're sold out. But you can definitely attend digitally. You can get virtual tickets over at lifetimeliberty.com. They're going to be exploring projects that are happening right now around the world that are working to achieve a lofty goal of securing freedom in our lifetime. Speakers will be from Crypto Valley, Prospera, the Seasteading Institute, and more.
And Mark.
And I don't know what he's going to be talking about, but I suspect, I can't speak with him, but because of some really ridiculous bail conditions, but knowing Mark, it's probably has to do with his hunt for the perfect ZE, as he calls it, or the special economic zone. He's been traveling around the world for, half a decade now or something like that, looking for the best place to locate. So I imagine he's going to be talking about that, but that's just my speculation. You can see for yourself by going and getting your tickets over at lifetimeliberty.com. It's, again, this coming Saturday, October 16th in Switzerland is where it's actually going to be happening. So as I am just kind of floating around the internet there just a moment ago during the break, I found a photo and I thought, is this really real? And it's really real. Dunkin' Donuts. Remember it used to be called Dunkin' Donuts, and then they took the word donuts out of their headline, their business
still call it
name?
Dunkin' Donuts sometimes.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody call it just Dunkin'.
Dunkin'?
Yeah.
I call it that sometimes.
They do.
And I wonder if it's weird.
It's a New England thing, I think, at least, that they call them Dunkin' around here. And so now that's actually the name of the business. And I remember when they changed the name and started removing the word donuts from like their logo.
Yeah.
I thought, this is stupid. Why did they do this? I mean, it doesn't. Now it makes sense. They don't actually sell donuts now. They
don't at all?
There's a store in Baltimore where they had a sign up, and there's a photo of this. It's like a piece of paper printed out. We apologize, but due to supply chain issues, we do not have donuts today. Please try our wonderful bagels and muffins. And then behind that, there's literally like 2 racks of muffins. That's it.
Well, their muffins might not be bad, but their donuts, or their bagels, I should say, are really awful. Or they were last time I tried one in the 90s.
Their food is just really flavorless and bland, and almost like they haven't even discovered salt. But
it's
I like
amazing
their
that people
coffees.
really love Dunkin' Donuts for whatever reason, and I agree with you. It's just kind of average.
I like their donuts. I don't like anything else they have, though. It's all awful, the rest of it.
But
I like their donuts. Their donuts are fine.
Yeah,
which is funny, is they take the donuts out of the name, and it's like that's the one good thing you have.
Yeah, this isn't a staged photo. This was the Belvedere Square location in Baltimore, Maryland. This, according to a Newsweek article about this, Amanda Burnham posted the picture of the empty sign, or the empty shelf and the sign. And this is a real deal. They actually point out here in this story about some of the shortages out there. Butterball, one of the leading turkey producers in the U.S., is warning there's going to be a shortage of turkeys ahead of Thanksgiving this November. So get your turkey now, stuff it in the freezer if you can find them at this point.
Turkey sucks.
So, Bonnie, you said during the break you were a little confused about the whole supply chain thing. What is it that is? What are you missing?
I'm not confused about I understand why the supply chain would be messed up, and I understand some stuff about the supply chain issues. I just don't understand this whole, there are boats off the coast. Why can't they come on and what's going on?
There's just not enough. There are not enough people working at the port because, well, as you know, a lot of businesses are hiring. There's a lot of people who quit their jobs and haven't gone back to work, so they don't have enough staff. There's also not enough truckers, as Chris was pointing out, to actually move. So even if the port could move 100% of the waiting 20-foot equivalent units, as they're called.
There's only so many warehouses to throw these, or storage space to throw the unloaded containers.
Then why did they send them without having any people to unload them?
Bad communications. The orders were placed.
People quitting in between that time?
No, but people had quit. Like, I guess the answer to that question is a good question. The answer to the question is the market does amazing things, but when you're dealing with government-regulated entities like ports, like it's the government top to bottom that operates, and they deal with unions, right? So these port workers are union workers.
Oh yeah.
So you got government centralization, union centralization, and if there's a slowdown at the port, the rest of the world doesn't necessarily know until it's too late. They already shipped the stuff, right? Like it's 15 to 30 days to get products from China over to the United States. So they shipped all this product. It's coming. And so it all gets there at the same time. Now the port people are like, well, we can't, you're going to have to wait. We've got a line. It's more than a dozen. Now it's like 60 cargo ships long. So the story we were reading a few nights ago said some of these shipping companies decided, all right, well, it's not worth sitting here and waiting. The people that are paying these shipping crews are paying like $80,000 a day to ship this stuff. So it's in their best interest to find an open port, right? So they're like, all right, well, let's go to Savannah, Georgia. So they float that cargo ship all the way down through the Panama Canal, cut over to the east coast of the United States, make that whole trip over to the east coast of the U.S. in the hopes that they can get into a different port. And they can't. There's a backup at Savannah. There's a backup in New York and New Jersey. Now, the wait is a little bit less, so they might get in sooner there. But this is a huge problem, and it has to do with the fact that, governments are in the way, number one. And number two, these ports aren't even running 24/7. That's something that they're going to be fixing now, apparently. But as you pointed out, Chris, if there's not enough trucks to take these shipping containers off their hands, then there's not going to be any movement.
And it's interesting because it was already pretty bad when it comes to China-U.S. transit, right? If you do something like DHL, you probably were looking at 2 weeks. If you were doing something like boat shipping, container shipping, you're probably looking at like 35 days as far as delivery. So
that doesn't include the wait at the port. That's just you're saying before the backup.
Yeah, right. So it's pretty bad. And if you look at like the rates for like DHL, I mean, what might have been
shooting up.
Yeah, what might be $80 previously is now like $400. It's crazy.
The shipping container rates, like if you were to actually like pay to move an entire container of product, whatever's in there, it doesn't matter what the product is, it's in the container.
Yep.
If you're paying to move a container, 2 years ago it would have been like $2,000 or $3,000. Now it's over $20,000.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at like the U.S. to Europe and the time frames, you're talking about a couple of days by like DHL.
Mm-hmm.
So it was already bad between China and the United States and China and Europe, and
right,
so
because of the shutdowns of some of the factories and
lots of regulations.
Yeah.
There's for example,
customs getting in the way.
There is, and if I'm not mistaken, I think China has regulations on exports. So it like the packages get opened and like manually checked by laborers before they leave the country for like, I guess they're trying to look for people or something, trying to escape or something, as well as when they enter a country. So it ends up increasing the amount of time that it takes to get something from China.
So it's a total cluster F, and a lot of it has to do with the government regulations, government getting in the way, because even with all these backups, they're sure as hell not going to tell the customs agents they can go home and get out of the way. So all this stuff still has to go through government bureaucracy and, getting their stamps.
Well, they might, but then nothing happens.
More coming up.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. if you'd like to see
real prosperity.
Start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate. Results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great. Homelessness and hunger to eliminate. Let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The former student accused of shooting and killing 17 people at his Florida high school in 2018 is pleading guilty. The rampage was one of the deadliest school shootings in American history, and it led thousands of students to campaign for tougher gun control laws. FSN's Rachel Silverman has that story.
Attorneys for Nicholas Cruz say he intends to plead guilty on all 17 counts of premeditated murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. The defense team is seeking 17 consecutive life sentences for Cruz. Prosecutors are asking for the death penalty. Cruz has also been charged with attacking a law enforcement officer while in custody months after the shooting. Jury selection in that case has proven traumatic, with several prospective jurors crying after seeing Cruz and Cruz himself sobbing in the courtroom.
A British lawmaker is dead after being stabbed while meeting with constituents. The attack east of London killed Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess. Here's UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
The reason I think people are so shocked and saddened is, above all, he was one of the kindest, nicest, most gentle people in politics.
A knife has been recovered and police have arrested a 25-year-old male suspect. The motive remains unclear. U.S. travel restrictions will be lifted for fully vaccinated international travelers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries on November 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. Including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travelers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People traveling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travelers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health.
Retail sales in the U.S. rose in September despite supply shortages and higher prices. The Census Bureau data defied the expectations of economists. Our U.S. correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
Sales by retailers, including restaurants and bars, rose a seasonally adjusted 0.7% from the previous month. The data shows that consumer demand remains healthy, despite supply constraints, the Delta variant, and the end of enhanced unemployment benefits. The rise in sales also partly reflects higher consumer prices, which advanced 0.4% in September from August and 5.4% from a year earlier. Kate Fisher, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, we're going to change gears in a little bit. We'll talk about something that a lot of people say is new, but I don't know how new it is. Seems like it's been around for a little while, but it's certainly getting some coverage now. And you came across this today, the social emotional learning, as it's being called. Bonnie, you'll tell us about that on the way here tonight. And again, the number is 603-283-6160. But at the beginning of the show, we mentioned to you that it's been a pretty big day for the world of cryptocurrency, specifically with Bitcoin coming close to $63,000. Not quite hitting it, but darn close to $63,000. Record high would be 65. So Within $2,000 of a record high today. We're in some pretty great territory.
And what that means is that its record high was $65,000 for one Bitcoin. You can own
Correct.
a piece of a Bitcoin, like a fraction of a Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's an important thing to bring up because a lot of people presume, I can't afford that, because most people certainly couldn't. But can you afford $50 worth? Because you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin.
You can buy $1 worth, technically.
It's kind of
you really can't.
It really is kind of like dollars. You don't have to have a whole dollar. You can have a fraction of a dollar, right?
Correct.
$1.50.
Yeah.
Well, you can have 1.5 Bitcoins too.
And or you can have 0.01 Bitcoin, 1%,
right,
or less of a Bitcoin. Now, when you get down to the dollar range, Bonnie, it gets difficult
because of the fees.
Because there are Bitcoin fees that are associated with Bitcoin BTC.
I forget because Bitcoin has fees and Bitcoin Cash doesn't really have big fees.
Yeah, that's true. Now, there are some centralized Bitcoin sellers that will sell you $1 worth of Bitcoin to their credit, but they're centralized and they could freeze your account.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so you're talking about a hosted wallet on an exchange.
Yeah, like Square Cash, for instance.
Yep.
Cash App, as it's called. You can go there and you can tell Cash App.
It's really not crypto at that point. It's just a number in a database.
Correct. Now, they, in theory, will let you withdraw that from your Square Cash wallet to an actual Bitcoin wallet where you have the keys once you go through all their know your customer
Assuming
procedures.
you have enough Bitcoin, right? Because
that
they're going to
would be
charge
the
you
problem.
a fee.
Yeah, there's a
once
fee.
you go from their hosted
So if
wallet
you've
to a
got less-
non-hosted wallet.
Yeah, if you've got less than $5 worth of Bitcoin, you should probably just wait until you get a little bit more.
Yeah. Or, as Bonnie was saying, Bitcoin Cash is another good option.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Cash is accepted pretty much everywhere Bitcoin is accepted. So if you're buying, lunch, just pay in Bitcoin Cash and the fees are basically zero.
Yeah, and don't pay like an extra $5 on top of your cup of coffee.
Yeah, I don't know if the Bitcoin fees are up to $5 at this time, but you will see that as the Bitcoin price rises, fees they're not percentage-based necessarily. They're based on the size of the data of the transaction itself. So, and I don't want to get too deep into the engineering weeds. So it's not like a percentage of the amount of the transaction. It just has to do with data. And but that said, the larger the price of a Bitcoin, likely the higher the fees are going to go generally. But also the big problem with Bitcoin is the network is full. And so because the network is full, Bitcoin can only handle so many transactions a second. I think it's like 7 per second maximum.
And here's the thing to remember, it's artificially full. So
correct.
If the people behind who are effectively in control, the developers, wanted to fix it, they could, but they've chosen not to.
Yeah.
And they're trying to push this thing called the Lightning Network, which has just been a nightmare. So
have you ever tried to use it?
Yes. But I've never successfully used it. So
Wow. And Chris is like a genius, so it's saying something.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, it's saying something if Chris can't figure out how to use a crypto sending method.
Well, I mean, I probably could. It's just one of the problems is that none of the major wallets support it.
Well, here's the other thing. Well, there are wallets that support it, but the Lightning Network is more centralized than the Bitcoin network is. So you're probably using some sort of centralized. If it's easy, then you're probably using a centralized solution.
Right.
The only way to decentralize with that would be to run your own Lightning node. And now you're getting into a much more complex situation, right? Now you're getting into serious research and figuring out how a thing works, and the average person is not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I've just never seen Lightning being a real simple thing. It always sounds so confusing, even when I hear people who know what they're talking about try to explain it. It's like, this is too complicated.
And when you can just use Bitcoin Cash instead, it's like no brainer.
I mean, I don't even think it would be that big of a deal if the wallets were supporting it, right? The wallets that we're actually using, right? And people could actually use it to like buy lunch. I don't necessarily know it'd be a big deal because you don't really have to fully understand everything about how everything works, but it doesn't work. Like it doesn't work in practice either, right? Like it's great. It sounds great, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you don't have the infrastructure rolled out to support it, it's not going to work, and we don't have the infrastructure to support it. So, it's a great technical thing maybe behind the scenes, and you can talk to me all day about how great it is. But if we can't actually use it because the merchant tools don't support it, or it just I don't know. I don't know. I don't even think it's a technical thing. I think it's just an infrastructure thing, and I bet you it could work. It's just It's not there. It's just not there.
Well, there's other news. Cointelegraph reporting that an official from the Office of the Attorney General has now said the U.S. government is going to take a more active role in enforcement action against actors using cryptocurrencies for money laundering and other cyber crimes.
Yeah, well, the Attorney General is just a big cuck.
Speaking at the Aspen Institute Cyber Summit on Wednesday, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco said the Justice Department had launched the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team, an initiative aimed at going after platforms that, quote, help criminals launder or hide their criminal proceeds. She said her office's work against darknet-based Bitcoin mixing service Helix in August, but said the U.S. government should be doing more.
This is just so disturbing because people think that they have to be a criminal to be targeted by the government, and the reality is you are probably committing some sort of money laundering offense. If you've ever gone into a bank and then realized, oh, you didn't do the right amount, and then you went back in, that might be considered money laundering. Like it's absolutely crazy because of how broad the law is. And I don't know if you remember the hearing. I think it was your hearing, Ian, but the judge actually said he was effectively convinced that you were guilty simply because of how broad the money laundering charges are.
Wow. I mean, I can't say I'm a total expert on all of these charges. I know that there are a lot of stupid financial quote-unquote crimes that are out there, but generally money laundering, as I understand it, has to do with taking the proceeds from crime and then doing something to try to make that money like into the legal money system, basically. So if for instance, somebody says to you, you sell computer parts for a living,
But it's not
Chris.
hard. The point is, it's not hard to do that based on what the way the law is worded. It's very broad. So, even something rudimentary that you would do on a regular basis, like just depositing money into a bank account, if you're doing it like in certain increments, every day, that could become money laundering because
You're thinking of structuring.
Well, hold on. Structuring can be connected to money law. If you are structuring, then you're money laundering. So, you end up getting charged with multiple crimes.
Yeah, although the structuring charges have changed. I think they did finally loosen that up a little bit, if I recall correctly. But money laundering generally is like if somebody comes to you and says, hey, Chris, I'm a prostitute. I'd like to buy a laptop from you.
I get it. Okay.
And if somebody admits to doing some sort of a criminal act and they want to actually, you're not a criminal. You're just selling a laptop. But you're like, well, I don't care what you did. And then you sell them the laptop. Then the government,
you're accepting
will charge you with
money from somebody who got it from
we're getting a little bit more detail than I was trying to.
Well, you brought it up, and I want to explain the general concept behind money laundering.
The point that I was trying to make is that so you're right. So there's a lot of different laws, and it's not necessarily money laundering so specifically that you might be guilty of, but there are so many different laws when it comes to
know what they all are.
Monetary instruments and such. And money laundering is an example, but structuring is another example. There's so many of these laws that basically everybody's guilty of breaking these laws, and they don't even know it. You are basically a criminal whether or not you know it. So when they are trying to go after people who are using crypto, it's like, well, you're also guilty of it just because they're not going. It may be the very law they would go after you for, simply because Bitcoin itself is not a crime, but that's the scary part of it.
The number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. They, again, announcing a cryptocurrency enforcement team at the national level. So apparently they feel like they're not doing enough prosecuting, and they want to prosecute more people and put more peaceful people behind bars.
Persecution of the crypto users.
Yeah, more coming up here in a moment. 603-283-6160. You can join us here. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Well, the ones that seek to destroy all nations in order to bring about a global domination of a one-world government, the biggest weapon that they have is rock and roll.
Isn't rock and roll dead?
You laugh.
Rock and roll's been dead for years.
It's embarrassed laughter because you know it's true.
Okay, who's living in 1970?
Wait a second.
The origin of rock and roll is in voodoo. The devil created rock and roll, and it's used to rob man of his freedom. And you cannot go into a department store or any store in the U.S., any public space in the U.S., without hearing the African drums of voodoo. And it's used...
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. The LRN.FM's social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. In the studio with you tonight, you've got Ian,
Bonnie,
and Chris.
And definitely want to make sure that you know, coming up this coming Tuesday night at about 10:30 Eastern Time, on our Odyssey channel, you'll be able to watch Conan and Arya proving just how dumb they can be. October 19th, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. What are they going to do? They've got the hottest pepper in the world, the Carolina Reaper. Conan has been growing these things in his garden, so he's personally been tending to them. They're not going to just start with the Reaper, though. They're starting with the light stuff, like jalapeno. Then they're going to habanero. Then they're going to the ghost pepper. Then, if they're still able to function, they will go to the Carolina Reaper, and I suspect they will, because these are both hardcore, heat addicts, essentially.
Yeah.
But
Arya did film herself doing the ghost peppers last year and said she would never do it again.
But now she's doing it, and she's taking it even further with what is supposedly the hottest pepper in the world, the Carolina Reaper. So we'll see who it is that has to go to the ice cream and milk first, because they're gonna be bringing in the ice cream and the milk. They're gonna have it at the ready to try to cut the heat, right? Like that's the way you do it. You don't do water because that just swirls around the oils and it doesn't help you at all. But you do something with milk.
Is Arya trying to like do some sort of insanity defense? I mean, this is just crazy.
It's crazy, and it's going to be on video, so you'll be able to watch it at video.freetalklive.com. We'd like you to watch it live. Of course, it'll be available later if you can't check it out live at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time this coming Tuesday night. Don't miss it on our Odyssey channel. Video.freetalklive.com. Bad Slave is on the line in New Hampshire. Bad Slave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Well, thank you very much for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
You guys keep bringing up all of this money laundering and that sort of thing, and almost all of those are federal crimes, right? I mean, the states don't engage so much in those types of realms as the feds. Correct?
There are state laws in most states that involve regulations on like finances and banking. New Hampshire's a little bit different, but it still has some of those laws too at the state level.
They probably do, but we just don't hear about those prosecutions, would be my guess.
Because the feds love that stuff, and in my mind, I don't really care, with someone where their money comes from. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it was stolen and there's a theft involved and I found out about it, I would definitely be concerned about that. But, most of this stuff, of everything that they're prosecuting you for, Ian and is Arya there?
Arya's not here tonight, no. But you're referring to the Crypto 6, which people can learn more at thecrypto6.com.
Right, exactly. And all of that stuff is federal crime, and it's dependent on there being a prohibited item of some kind, contraband.
That's correct.
And I don't believe in the existence of contraband. I mean,
I'm with you, man. I think they need to legalize all the drugs, but unfortunately, they're not doing that. And so, meanwhile, they're going to keep prosecuting people for these meaningless, quote unquote, crimes, like you're describing.
How does it ever generate into a crime where some victim is harmed? None of that is even possible.
I agree with you. I mean, obviously the war on drugs is a total sham, and it is it's essentially an excuse to put peaceful people behind bars, whether they be the users or the dealers. Most of these people are completely peaceful. They've never harmed anybody else, and they're doing business with consenting adults, with people who want to put something into their own body, and they should have the control over their own body to do that, and not face having their body thrown into a jail cell for dozens of years.
Yeah, it's basically an excuse for the largest gang in town to do basically immoral things, steal from you.
Oh.
Thanks, Bad Slave. Appreciate hearing from you. The number is 603-283-6160. He's not going to get any disagreement here, but unfortunately, the reality is if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm a Russian heroin dealer and I'd like to buy your fill in the blank, whatever it is, if you sell whatever it is, doesn't matter. Yep. If it's laptops, if it's bath soap, if it's, whatever it is your thing is, if somebody says to you they have money from criminal activity and they want to give it to you to buy something and you do it, doesn't matter what your opinion is about it, they're going to charge you with money laundering because that's probably an undercover agent.
if they're targeting you for sure.
Odds are good if somebody's telling you that they're a heroin dealer, they're probably an undercover
especially if it involves cryptocurrency, because that's been their standard
that's their standard line.
Yeah, it's their standard line. Every time that I've seen any kind of charges, that was the line they used.
What, I'm a heroin dealer?
Something. Yes. It doesn't have to be specifically heroin, but it's something of that nature. Heroin and crack, kind of drugs, right? If they say something about drugs and you're going to sell them cryptocurrency, that is basically a guaranteed agent of some kind that's trying to do some sort of sting on you.
So if you want to comment, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. In related news, I know coming up here, we've got something. Chris, you've got something about credit card companies, since we're talking about some money-related stuff. Do you have that story handy?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about it.
All right. Yeah. So this is a story from theeconomist.com. Credit card firms are becoming reluctant regulators of the web. I have to, I don't know. I don't know if I like the phrasing of this, just because it's like, well, I mean, you are a regulator, and you do have a choice, and you're choosing to go along with the regulations. From sex to free speech, what goes online is increasingly up to financial companies. Basically, there is a lot of government regulation here as well, but it's also the credit card companies are doing more than what's required as well.
Absolutely.
So
they're doing signaling level stuff like, oh, look how good we are, government. Look, we're your friends.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, they didn't necessarily have to. For example, when they targeted WikiLeaks. When they targeted WikiLeaks, they didn't have to go along with the federal government. They could have said no, that's free speech, and rejected, the government, But the problem is that they have they have this government too that is, it's they can suspend licenses, right?
Sure.
And they can do all of these things. It's a highly regulated industry.
So they want to curry favor.
And right. And the thing is, yeah, sure, they cannot suspend a bank, maybe, for example, or a financial processor for for free speech related things. But there's so many other violations that are constantly going on.
They'll find something.
Right. And that's the danger with just in general with all of these laws. And it's such a regulated industry that you have to basically,
dot all your I's.
Yeah, you got to dot all your I's, cross all your T's, and beg the government. Basically, you have to say things to the government. I probably can't say on air here, but yeah, you got to beg the government to continue having that license effectively. Who should police the internet? For some time now, the question has tied companies, regulators, and campaigners in knots. Social networks spend billions moderating content posted on their platforms, but are still criticized either for not removing enough toxic material or for stifling free speech. They are not the only ones to grapple with the problem. Banks and credit card companies, too, are finding themselves playing bigger role in what is said and done in the public square, to their and their customers' discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is basically the boundary of censorship, and they're basically using credit card companies to further that end. Various.
Well, we've seen
people like on the left, and
we've seen examples of how the government is mandating certain things, right? So there's a prohibition in the United States on any credit card companies doing business with gambling sites.
Yeah.
They're just prohibited from doing that. So some things there's actual laws that they have to follow, but other things not so much. Like, for instance, OnlyFans recently announcing that they were going to restrict porn creators on their site and no longer allow that. Now, they ultimately reversed that decision, but it was only because they found a bank who was willing to actually work with them. Because that was what was making them make that decision in the first place, was their banking partner said, yeah, we don't want to support you on this anymore.
We don't want your, lots of money.
Yeah, it's so weird. And it's not because it's illegal, because it's not illegal to do porn. But is it politically feasible? That's a whole other question. We can continue, and you can share your thoughts with us at 603-283-6160.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's ward stones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The former student accused of shooting and killing 17 people at his Florida high school in 2018 is pleading guilty. The rampage was one of the deadliest school shootings in American history, and it led thousands of students to campaign for tougher gun control laws. FSN's Rachel Silverman has that story.
Attorneys for Nicholas Cruz say he intends to plead guilty on all 17 counts of premeditated murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. The defense team is seeking 17 consecutive life sentences for Cruz. Prosecutors are asking for the death penalty. Cruz has also been charged with attacking a law enforcement officer while in custody months after the shooting. Jury selection in that case has proven traumatic, with several prospective jurors crying after seeing Cruz and Cruz himself sobbing in the courtroom.
A British lawmaker is dead after being stabbed while meeting with constituents. The attack east of London killed Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess. Here's UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
The reason I think people are so shocked and saddened is, above all, he was one of the kindest, nicest, most gentle people in politics.
A knife has been recovered and police have arrested a 25-year-old male suspect. The motive remains unclear. U.S. travel restrictions will be lifted for fully vaccinated international travelers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries on November 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. Including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travelers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People traveling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travelers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health.
Retail sales in the U.S. rose in September despite supply shortages and higher prices. The Census Bureau data defied the expectations of economists. Our U.S. correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
Sales by retailers, including restaurants and bars, rose a seasonally adjusted 0.7% from the previous month. The data shows that consumer demand remains healthy, despite supply constraints, the Delta variant, and the end of enhanced unemployment benefits. The rise in sales also partly reflects higher consumer prices, which advanced 0.4% in September from August and 5.4% from a year earlier. Kate Fisher, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. World Food Day will be marked globally this Saturday. The UN's annual focus on food insecurity, exacerbated now by both climate change and COVID-19. The rise in food prices in many countries is also adding to the fear of growing hunger even in the developed world. This year alone, a drought in Kenya and flooding in South Sudan led to warnings of famine there, but political crises in countries including Afghanistan, Haiti, Yemen and Zimbabwe also fueled fresh anxieties. And then there is COVID-19. Jim Lindsay is with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations.
The countries that are facing the greatest food insecurity around the world these days are also the same countries that are being hit very hard by COVID-19. We still have the problem of the vast inequality in terms of vaccine distribution. They're almost non-existent in lower income countries. I think I've seen numbers saying on average less than 10% of the population in these countries has had any kind of vaccination for COVID-19. And of course, these are countries that also lack robust public health systems to take care of people who do fall ill.
World Food Day was first observed in 1945 to mark the creation of the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, and there will be events taking place in more than 150 separate countries on Saturday. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The former student accused of shooting and killing 17 people at his Florida high school in 2018 is pleading guilty. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson reacts to the stabbing death of Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess. And U.S. travel restrictions will be lifted for fully vaccinated international travelers beginning on November 8th. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
The only nation where this regularly happens concludes that there's no way to prevent this. A college rape victim is pretty thrilled about recounting her assault to a faculty committee, and the nation's depressed individuals march on the Atlantic Ocean. This is the Onion Week in Review. Secretary of Veterans Affairs Eric Shinseki announced plans this week to improve healthcare for American veterans with a new $500 million state-of-the-art waiting room. The 150,000 square foot complex will reportedly feature a wide selection of magazines, 2 water coolers, and receptionists who will immediately give veterans vague answers about how long they can expect to sit there before receiving inadequate healthcare. And in this week's commentary, a local man finds owning a cat is a great way to meet women who magically appear in your living room. In other news, a new study finds employee morale drastically improves after watching a coworker throw a fit. A wise oracle proclaims to all at a barbecue that he felt a raindrop, and an elderly man is hailed as alert.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, kicking off the third hour of the program. Of course, you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Coming up, we're going to find out what social emotional learning is. Apparently, this is like the new thing that government schools are pushing on young people. We'll explain that. Bonnie's got that on the way here tonight. Ian, Bonnie, and Chris in the studio. Phones are open as always. If you want to join us, bring up whatever's on your mind. Our number is 603-283-6160. We've been sort of off and on, focused on cryptocurrency to some extent here tonight, and financial sort of related stuff, shortages. And Chris, you had a story about these credit card companies that are cracking down on speech on the internet. And they're doing it not necessarily at the behest of government, but more because they want to appease the government.
Yep. I don't even know if it's appeasing the government, but a certain sector of the population, certainly. So activists have been pushing for, and I don't even know exactly what their objective is, to be honest. It doesn't.
You mean like activists that like want to ban pornography, so they're trying to put pressure on the processors?
The same type, the anti-gays kind of that type. Yeah. They've basically been slanting it as anybody involved in the sex industry or pornography business as some sort of sex trafficker. That's what they want to make you believe anyway.
Which is false.
Ridiculous. Right.
It's never been, it's never enough for these people to just not buy the product, right? Like, okay, you don't have to watch it. You don't have to support it.
You don't have to give your kids Eminem's CD for Christmas.
Well, yeah, if we're talking about that, I doubt they're going after explicit music at this point.
I'm just saying it's people like that.
It's the same type. It's the same person. Yeah, it's the same group of people basically. Yeah. This is the. I believe there's actually a direct connection with. I don't recall, but it's basically like a minority religious cult almost. That is basically behind this, and it's I didn't. It kind of sounds like it, but I didn't have that actual connection. And there was that actual at some point I made that connection that it is in fact the people who were pushing for the legislation at one point. It's the same group. It's the same group of people that we saw 20 years ago, 40 years ago, even pushing for the same type of anti-porn crusade, anti-gaming, anti-violent video games. It's all the same group of people effectively. The boundary of censorship is now being extended further into the pornography business. But there's a twist. From October 15th, adult websites worldwide, so one world government, will have to verify the age and identity of anyone featured in a picture or video, as well as the ID of the person uploading it. You might be wondering, how on earth are they going to achieve that? Because there's no laws that exist worldwide, except for maybe insurrection. I think insurrection is the only universal law in every country or something like that. They will.
You're saying it's the websites that will have to verify this, and they're putting, and the credit card processors are putting this onto them.
The credit card processors are behind it.
Wow.
They will need to operate a fast complaints process and must review all content before publication. These rules are being imposed not by regulators, but by MasterCard, a credit card giant. Now, here's the thing. MasterCard is doing this, but they're not the only ones. I believe there was a story about Visa also, or maybe it's covered a little bit in this story, also doing something similar. So if you want your speech, what you believe, whatever, anything that you might take payment for, this is just the first step, right? They achieve their successes here with porn, and then they come for something that you believe or something you value. You might have a website. I don't know. Maybe you sell Beanie Babies, and I don't know. In order to fund your political website, well, they're going to go for that next. Because that's what they do. This is how these people who want to ban things work. They start with something that sounds universally objectionable or seems like a good thing, and then they go after something else, something that you are into.
So they're saying that starting when these websites?
So this is something, I think it was October 15th. So it's already started
today.
I believe.
So starting today, all porn sites accepting MasterCard.
Yep.
Which got to be almost all of them.
I would think so. There's only three major credit cards in the United States?
Why don't people just say no to MasterCard?
Well, because Visa is doing something similar, from what I understand.
Yeah, because people want money, and so they just don't. They're not ready to go all crypto, which is what they need to do at this point.
Pornhub started accepting crypto because of an issue like this, last year, right?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. It was, I think, the EU, I think that they got blocked from the wire transfer system over there or something like that. There was some sort of situation like that where Pornhub went crypto only, at least in certain countries, if not global. I don't remember all the details of that, but they're still out there.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about why businesses are in a lot of cases reticent to adopt cryptocurrency because they're worried about the prices changing, right? Like the value of the crypto. If you're buying and selling oil, as we were discussing, or you're buying and selling laptops, or you're buying and selling a physical product, you've got more to be concerned about. But if all you're doing is just selling pornography over the internet, it doesn't matter. If you're just getting a subscription fee of $30 a month or whatever these sites are charging, $10 a month, then it doesn't matter if that goes down to 8 or if it goes up to 12 or if it.
So
it doesn't matter.
They have numbers here, which I think are interesting. So if you were as a business owner of a pornography website wanting to continue to operate things as you have been, you are basically going to be accepting a 30% cut. And it's actually going to be greater than that because Visa, which manages 60% of payments, is also taking a firmer line on adult sites.
Mm-hmm.
So 60, 70, 80, 90% of your business is going to go bye-bye.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
if
huge.
you've waited this long, if you're running a porn site and you've waited this long to start taking crypto, you've waited too long.
Yeah,
you need to do something.
I feel like this is like kind of one of these things that's like, it's you are part of the problem, right? By dragging
your feet on
this,
by
dragging your feet, you are part of the problem.
You're empowering these companies.
Right. You're empowering, this minority to control all of us.
Also,
and remember, it doesn't stop at porn anyway. So even if you don't operate a porn website, you should still be concerned about this.
Also, I think that this goes even deeper as a way to control us because people are kind of getting freedom through like, oh, I'm a pretty girl and I have an OnlyFans website. Now all of a sudden I have $1 million. People are, the average person just like looking kind of cute can make money off of, taking their pictures and selling them online now. That's kind of like it seems more like that these credit card companies are using the excuse of, oh, there's these moms against porn, groups that are pressuring us to do this, when in reality it's probably just a concerted effort between like the banks, the credit card processors, and the government to take power away from the people.
Right. And remember, I mean, look, this is porn, but the credit card, the financial industry, right? They actually did the same thing to WikiLeaks, right? And what is do you guys remember what WikiLeaks was? What happened with that?
Yeah, but what did the credit card companies do?
They blocked them.
They blocked WikiLeaks from accepting donations.
Right.
And
all they did was tell the truth.
Right. Right.
Wow, didn't know that.
What are they going to do next? Target the conservatives? Are you a conservative? Or what about, theoretically, they could target the left too. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen. It seems like the left is the one that's kind of manipulating things here, but I don't know. That's not entirely clear to me. A religious, side of things seems more right to me.
Well, that's the funny thing is like even like people in the porn industry believe that the Democrats are somehow on their side, but the reality is the prosecutions of the porn people have gone on throughout both Republican and Democrat administrations. So it doesn't matter who's in charge in Washington D.C. They are anti the sex trade.
Yep, definitely. I wouldn't choose the word sex trade, but they're definitely anti-porn.
It's part of the sex trade. I mean, it is ultimately a section of it. It's not actual straight up prostitution, but in some places, the way you can get around prostitution laws is by recording it.
I think they've.
New Hampshire is one of those places. By the way,
use of the word is in the context that I think of sex trade. I think of like slavery. That's why sex slavery, which is
no. I just mean the sex business.
Yeah, right.
There's a large business out there. It's not all like prostitution or whatever.
Right. It's not all unethical.
Well, prostitution isn't unethical either. It's completely ethical if it's done voluntarily by two consenting people. There's more coming up here. It's mostly criminalized in most places, but in I believe California and New Hampshire, as long as you got a video camera running, then you can pay people for sex.
Oh, does it have to be recording?
That's not legal advice, by the way. It's just my understanding. More coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. You can join us.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. The number here is 603-283-6160. If you want to join us, you can do that. Take control of the airwaves. With you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
Talking about the centralized system of finance that is so controlling that now credit card companies, and this isn't new. It's just the latest examples of what they're doing. Cracking down on sex-related online businesses, for instance. You said, Chris, that there's apparently now a MasterCard rule. This isn't a law.
Nope.
It's now a MasterCard rule that starts apparently today, October 15th, that says that any sex website, I don't know if you have the language there again. I know you may not be on it at the moment, but they have to have age verification of all of their actors or something like that. Is that...
Yeah, so it says
right?
From October 15th, adult websites worldwide will have to verify the age and identity of anyone featured in a picture or video, as well as the ID of the person uploading it.
And this is one of the things that Pornhub had to change recently. Even though they started accepting cryptocurrency, for some reason they were getting sued, or something happened with them as well, where they also now had to delete a ton of content off of their website.
And my understanding is that it was the credit card companies that basically suspended the banks that were credit card companies were forcing the banks to suspend their accounts or something to that effect. That was my understanding of what happened with the Pornhub thing.
Yeah, and I think that they were still doing business with credit card companies in some countries, maybe the U.S. or whatever. There was like, I think it was Europe where they went crypto only. I think that was what happened there.
Even just the fact that you have to have an ID to make porn now kind of sucks.
Yeah. So basically they took down every account that didn't have an ID associated with it, and they mandated all accounts had to ID up and start, showing proof of all the proof of age requirements or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was even more complicated than that. I think they had to discard all non-premium content, which basically meant something like if you were kind of if you were a small player in the business, you no longer could do business on Pornhub. It was something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty crazy.
Just like, what if you don't even have an ID? That sucks.
Yeah, you can't make money, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, if you're and people forget
you're going through these websites,
and people forget that there's a lot of people that are not in the United States, or even in the United States, there's people who don't have IDs. But it's particularly the case that people outside the United States don't have IDs in a lot of places. They don't have bank accounts. A lot of people don't have bank accounts around the world. I mean, the United States has a disproportionate number of people with bank accounts and ID, but that's not universal. There's 8 billion people in the world, and most of them don't have these things. So they're basically shutting out, and most of the world now does have internet, but most of the world doesn't have like bank accounts and IDs. So it's a huge...
This is one of the things that cryptocurrencies solve for people. For unbanked people, and I'm pretty much one of them at this point.
Oh yeah, you definitely are.
For unbanked people, it gives them access to financial technology that they've never had access to in their entire life. So if you are an individual who wants to get into this business, and I'm not recommending it, I mean, this is a tough business for people to get into because, think about your customers, right? You're dealing with a bunch of horny dudes who are some of the most difficult to deal with, I imagine, customers out there. But, if that's a business you want to get into, then you take their money via cryptocurrency, do it all through your own website, and then there's nothing the banking cartel can say to you about it.
Yeah. I wish people would turn their dollars and euros into cryptocurrencies and then only, partake in business with more what I would refer to as ethical pornography sites. Because ultimately at the end of the day, you won't be able to get, you may be into something that is, I don't know, not sanctioned by, right-wing conservatives, if it's not sanctioned by them, that won't be allowed on the porn site. This is just the beginning, right? It's like, it's anything they view as deviant.
And that's not far-fetched, considering what me, you, and Arya, I think it was, covered about Australia on the last episode we were on. Like
were there censorship policies, you mean?
They have crazy censorship policies to where, like, if you have like a book with like a sex scene, they won't sell it.
Or they may put it under a restricted category. There's different levels of censorship there. Yeah, scary stuff.
And that's government censorship, not like the U.S. has a... they say it's not government censorship, but they were, I think if I recall correctly, it was implemented as the result of threats of government doing it. So
you mean rating systems?
Yeah,
like the
rating
video
systems.
game rating system.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it technically is not government, but it's
they basically said if you don't do this, we're going to do it to you.
Yeah. It was still under threat of violence. Effectively.
Is that the Gamergate thing?
No, that's something else. That has to do with like women reporters in the gamer industry or something like that.
Oh.
That's old. Yeah, I can't even remember all the details. I remember we talked about it when it happened, but I don't remember the details.
Yeah. So, but this story actually gets into a little bit more detail. So, since the turn of the century, payments have become a tool of domestic and international policy. That's an interesting way to phrase that. Censorship. Says Aaron Klein of the Brookings Institute, a think tank. After the 9/11 attacks of 2001, America introduced new anti-money laundering rules and more targeted sanctions. Financial firms must block payments to the people on a list that today runs 1,604 pages long.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not people, that's pages. So, I mean, how many names can you list on a page? That's
lots.
Probably hundreds, I would think.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Governments also began to tap banks for help at home. A craze for online poker prompted America's Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act of 2006. I remember
That's the one I was talking about, where they prohibit any bank, any credit card company, anyone operating a debit or a credit card from processing transactions to any gambling institution.
Effectively, what this does is it makes people use cryptocurrency if they want to use a gaming website on the internet,
which is a good thing. Ultimately, it is driving interest in crypto from that perspective. They didn't see that coming in 2006.
No, they didn't. It predates crypto.
Happened,
so, and this is the thing. It's like,
and before you go on, the interesting thing about that, again, I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice. But my understanding after looking into this, that it's not illegal for you as the gambler to use these websites. It's just illegal for the banks to help you.
Right.
So they go after the bank. If you try to swipe the card or whatever, you try to put your card number in there, they're just going to decline it. The bank's not going to put it through. But if they did, then the bank themselves would be the ones facing prosecution, not the user.
The law targets the banks. And this is one of the dangers of regulations of your finances, your banks, your financial institutions.
Yep.
When you regulate that, you control the people. It's a means of controlling the people.
That's what it's all about.
The government uses these sorts of tools all the time to force people to do what they want. Things that are immoral, frequently. So it's a danger, and people should stand up to this kind of stuff. And
the only way to stand up to it is to get out of their system, is to go into cryptocurrency. That's the only way out of this. They have a total lockdown on the banking system, and now they're talking about requiring people or requiring banks to report transactions of over $600.
It's crazy.
The way inflation's happening, eventually that $600 ain't going to be able to buy you a McDonald's.
No,
it's not that
really
bad
won't.
yet.
But inflation is good, Ian.
Oh yeah, right. Like that's what they're actually trying to say now. Apparently, they didn't use those terms, but
you being able to buy less stuff with your labor, that's good.
It's ridiculous. There's more coming up here in moments. You can join us on Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The former student accused of shooting and killing 17 people at his Florida high school in 2018 is pleading guilty. The rampage was one of the deadliest school shootings in American history, and it led thousands of students to campaign for tougher gun control laws. FSN's Rachel Silverman has that story.
Attorneys for Nicholas Cruz say he intends to plead guilty on all 17 counts of premeditated murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. The defense team is seeking 17 consecutive life sentences for Cruz. Prosecutors are asking for the death penalty. Cruz has also been charged with attacking a law enforcement officer while in custody months after the shooting. Jury selection in that case has proven traumatic, with several prospective jurors crying after seeing Cruz and Cruz himself sobbing in the courtroom.
A British lawmaker is dead after being stabbed while meeting with constituents. The attack east of London killed Conservative Member of Parliament Sir David Amess. Here's UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
The reason I think people are so shocked and saddened is, above all, he was one of the kindest, nicest, most gentle people in politics.
A knife has been recovered and police have arrested a 25-year-old male suspect. The motive remains unclear. U.S. travel restrictions will be lifted for fully vaccinated international travelers, including from more than 24 previously banned countries on November 8th. The White House is also easing restrictions on overland border crossings from Canada and Mexico. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
Fully vaccinated visitors will be able to travel to the United States from November 8th. including those from previously banned countries. The White House says the travelers will have to show proof of both a vaccination and a recent negative COVID test before boarding flights. People traveling by land will not need to provide a negative test. Pandemic restrictions are also being eased on overland crossings from Canada and Mexico. In September, the Biden administration announced it would lift bans on European and other travelers. The White House says the new travel policies are being guided by public health.
Retail sales in the U.S. rose in September despite supply shortages and higher prices. The Census Bureau data defied the expectations of economists. Our U.S. correspondent Kate Fisher reports.
Sales by retailers, including restaurants and bars, rose a seasonally adjusted 0.7% from the previous month. The data shows that consumer demand remains healthy, despite supply constraints, the Delta variant, and the end of enhanced unemployment benefits. The rise in sales also partly reflects higher consumer prices, which advanced 0.4% in September from August and 5.4% from a year earlier. Kate Fisher, Washington.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live. Phones are open here if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Talking about the centrally controlled banking credit card system. They are putting more restrictions on pornography websites online. MasterCard telling porn sites that, as of all porn sites everywhere, if you're using MasterCard, that starting today, apparently, they have to keep some kind of records for every single video clip, every single photograph that they have on their website. If they don't have the actual actress's information available, and what is that supposed to mean exactly? Does that mean the average user can just go and say, oh, I want to see what that girl's real name is and what her birthday is?
Even if it doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean it can't probably be easily hacked.
That's a good point. If it's in a database somewhere, it could absolutely be hacked. But yeah, that doesn't seem like it would be a real good idea. Would be to put that information out like on a link on every single page. Like, yeah, here are the real names of and birth dates of our actresses. So that doesn't seem likely that they're going to do that. So is it only MasterCard that can just come in there and just like randomly audit and say, we want to see this person's birthday and that person's birthday?
This is a good question. It's not applicable to one website, right? So you know that there's going to be breaches of this database.
Sure.
At some point. This is a terrible idea when it comes to, the safety of women and those involved in the porn industry. But it's not about...
Chris, if it just saves one child from being put into sex slavery, then it's all worth it, right?
It's not really about the women and children.
That's
it's
what
not
they
about
want
protecting
you to believe.
them anyway.
But that's their excuse for this.
It's because, Ian, sex is bad. Sex is dirty. Sex is immoral. Okay.
Well, that's not what they're saying, though. What they're going to say, they're going to say
right,
is
because they know that most people don't think that.
Well, whether they think it or not is another question. Some people think it while still watching the product.
Fair enough.
Right?
Fair enough.
But what they're going to say is, oh no, this is about stopping child pornography. This is about stopping.
How does it stop child pornography?
Well, if there's a teenage girl that gets her picture
that's not
taken,
child porn.
Well, okay, I get what you're saying, but by definition,
it depends on which definition you're looking at. I think depending on the country,
the government's definition.
But there's different governments, so you have a.
But MasterCard's just going to apply the most restrictive one. MasterCard's just going to say
25.
Well, I don't think there's an age of consent of 25 anywhere out there. I think it typically is 18.
It's at least Japan is at least 21 or 23 or something. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, I do believe that's the case. So yeah,
no wonder people are leaving Japan.
Well, this is the thing. There are definitely countries, and there's other countries like if you go to the Middle East, all pornography is banned. So
yeah, that's true.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, should we allow any women on the? I mean, I think women on the internet should be banned. Period. I mean, photos of women. I mean, and skin exposed.
Women being
for your
online.
health and safety.
Faces, yeah, I think we need to protect women. Women should not be allowed to have photos of them without a full veil
burqa
on, without a burqa on, because that's immoral. That's wrong. That could lead to sex slavery. I mean,
what you're saying is just the next step, right? Like that's literally the same mentality.
It's the same type of people. It's just they're not. Sure, maybe the Christians aren't taking it to that degree, but the Muslims might be. It's. If you allow one
and
group
the fact
to do
is, the Christians would agree with the Muslims on this, right?
Probably, if they could get away with it,
they would ban pornography if they could get away with it.
They'd probably ban women from leaving their houses if they could.
What else do we need to know here?
Let's see here. A craze for online poker prompted America's Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act of 2006, which handed responsibility for blocking transactions not to internet service providers that allowed access to poker sites, but to the companies that enabled the payment.
Right, because speech in the United States is still ostensibly free, meaning that you should be able to
but not
access,
if it's pornography.
Well, no, in theory, you should be able to access these websites, the gambling sites in this particular case. So you as an individual, you have the right to, speak. You have the right to see other people's speeches, in this case, the gambling sites. You just don't have a right to use the banking system, which is highly regulated, to pay for it. That was the legal argument.
Isn't there some court ruling that says like money is speech or something like that too? Like I'm always amazed at the contradictions that like come out of our court systems. It's like okay, we're all equal except like in New Hampshire there was the New Hampshire Supreme Court ruling that was like men and women are like I don't know, they're like I don't even remember. It was just so contradictory though. Are not equal, and it's like wait a minute, doesn't the law say that they are equal? So that
sharing or something.
No, it had to do with a beach, women at a beach.
Oh, the topless.
Yeah, the topless one, and their response, like the New Hampshire Supreme Court's response was like, they're not equal. It's like wait a minute, but we have like this in our Constitution that says they're equal. So like how can you then?
It was insane.
It was absolutely insane.
Was that turned over or anything?
No,
the Supreme Court just reaffirmed.
It was the New Hampshire Supreme Court.
Something that wasn't even legal.
They upheld this. I think it was Laconia's ordinance banning topless women.
Yeah,
topless women from the beach.
Yeah, and it's not illegal in New Hampshire at the state level for women to go around topless, which is what makes it so crazy, or one of the many things that made it crazy.
Wow.
As most American states legalized the cannabis industry in some form, its growth was nipped in the bud by federal laws that dissuade banks from dealing with marijuana moguls.
Yeah, that was a huge issue for the marijuana trade was, okay, hey guys, it's legal. You can go ahead and start selling it now. And then these guys are raking in cash, right? Like raking it in. And they don't have enough room in the vault. They got a safe in the back, but that filled up the second day, right? So they have nowhere to put all this cash. And they try to go to the banks, they try to go to credit unions, and these guys said, nope, sorry. Yeah, we know it's legal, but it's not legal at the federal level, and we're federally regulated, so we would love to help you, but sorry, we can't do that because we're scared of the feds.
Under your mattress.
So you might be thinking, well, this doesn't affect you, right? Well, no, it does. And then this next thing is going to demonstrate how it affects you.
Okay.
So
you mean if you're not a pornographer or somebody who wants to watch it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Even if you're not into pornography, you don't watch it, you don't have a website, it still affects you. So it's not unusual for big banks such as HSBC or JP Morgan Chase to employ more than 20,000, I'm going to repeat that, 20,000 specialists in risk and compliance. So basically what that means is they're going over your financial transactions. When you try to wire money or you try to make a payment to somebody, to like a gambling website, even if you're not making a payment to somebody else is, right? And they have to stop that transaction from occurring. And in order to stop that, they have to employ these people, which increases the costs of the bank doing business.
Sure.
And who do you think pays those costs?
Customers.
The customers, you.
Right.
When you get charged $40 or you pay 6% more for your goods at the store because you swipe that card.
Or you get no interest rate or next to zero. That's because they're paying all these people.
Or you need to make a wire transfer, somebody in Europe, and you pay $100 for that wire transfer. Well, why do you think cryptocurrencies are so much better of a deal? They don't have any of that red tape.
That's right. No overhead.
They don't have that overhead, right? And that's why cryptocurrencies are such an important thing to effectively free us all. And it's both economic freedom and it's actual literal freedom, from a free speech perspective too.
Right.
So yeah. Let's see here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so it's
the only way out is to get out of the banking system and get into crypto and start learning stuff.
And in
this
situation with the credit card processors blocking people from being able to use porn, it's freedom of speech and also freedom to make your own money if you're doing it through crypto.
This is a great line right here. Mr. Trump has presumably found other banks willing to work with him. So basically, what he's saying is financial institutions were not willing to deal with the president.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a political person, you might get caught up with financial institutions not willing to work with you now too.
Yeah. Well, you know who denied Bonnie's bank account? We tried to put Bonnie's bank account in the AMP program, and the risk department, the very same people you just talked about, said we can't have her on there.
I'm dangerous.
So that's why the AMP program is down as far as credit cards right now. We're looking at other options. There's more coming up here. In fact, Bonnie's got a story. Part of this whole story that you're talking about, Chris, is to have people who are unquestioning robots who will never, wonder about other options. They'll just do what they're told. And that all starts with the government schools. Bonnie's got a story about that on the way, and you can share your thoughts with us as well. This is Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything, even here in the remaining moments. The number is 603-283-6160, whether you want to talk about the banks cracking down on internet content, just because they want to look like good little corporate citizens to the governments of the world, or maybe to the ultra-right wing, or whatever. You can comment, 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Chris.
And sort of changing gears, Bonnie, you've had a story that you wanted to share, or just some research that you've been doing today. You came across this thing called social emotional learning.
Yes.
And this is like the new controversy with government schools because for whatever reason, parents still send their kids to these government indoctrination camps, and then they get upset when the government indoctrinates their kid.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, the best solution, sort of like what we were talking about with the banks, the best solution to the banks is to get the hell out.
Yep.
And the same thing's true with the government schools.
I want to get into that, that level of thinking of parents that don't understand that that's what the schools are there to do, because that's what I was looking at today. Was okay, so basically how I heard about social emotional learning, SEL, is this New Hampshire girl who does YouTube videos named Karlin Borisenko.
Mm-hmm.
She's pretty cool. I only heard about her because she had her friend Alu from NHXit, or what's his thing?
Alu Axelman, he is from Liberty Block, but he's also, a supporter of NHXit. He's a huge independence supporter. He's written books about it. He's got articles up on Liberty Block, just tons of information about
he's super into it.
Yeah, why independence. I'd say he's maybe the top activist for
for sure.
Independence.
Yeah.
Well, so Karlin Borisenko, a YouTuber, had him on her channel and interviewed him, and so I followed her. And today she was doing a live, and she said, this is a thing that the schools are doing that is way scarier than critical race theory teaching, which
is also a recent controversy.
Yeah, I don't know much about that. Like, I never had to be subjected to any of that when I was in school, and never heard of any of my little siblings having to or anything, so I've never had any reason to research that.
Well, they probably don't tell the kids what it's called, right? Like, they probably don't tell the kids, all right, we're going to learn critical race theory. They just have a curriculum that they push on them. Same thing here. They're not going to tell the kids, oh, we're going to learn about social emotional learning today. Now, they've got a curriculum they're going to plug them into.
Exactly. Let me explain what this is. Yeah. So what it is they're going to start putting out surveys to people's kids without asking or alerting the parents. Surveys that say things like, have you ever had sex? How many sexual partners have you had? Have you ever bought or sold drugs on the school campus? All kinds of very personal things about their health and their mental health and all this stuff. And then they're going to have group classroom meetings and discuss it all together like a hive mind. Like everybody in the class needs to know all your business. And it's going to be attached to their permanent records. So the government...
So this is a huge change, because I remember when I was in school, which, at this point is a couple decades ago, but I remember they gave these surveys out that were asking questions about, hey, have you used drugs? And, are you being abused at home? And, questions like you're talking about. But the thing they would tell you, and I never believed them, but the thing they would tell you is, oh, it's anonymous. We don't know who you are. We're just your name's not on this. So we're just collecting data. What you're saying is this information will be attached to the individual, meaning that this is no longer anonymous.
Yep, it's on their permanent record.
Oh, whoa, that's creepy.
Let me read to you. This isn't like a right-winger explaining it in their terms or anything like that. This is from CASEL, Critical Updates and Rationale. The title of this, CASEL apparently is behind social economic learning and has been for 2 decades.
CASEL, is this a company or a person?
It must be a company,
okay.
A group. The CASEL program, I can't find any more information on it right here, but it's called, this paper, it's 42 pages. It says Evidence-Based Social and Emotional Learning Programs. You go down to the executive summary and it says, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, CASEL. Okay, so that's what CASEL is.
Their website, CASEL, CASEL.org, Advancing Social and Emotional Learning. So yeah, that's what they're all about.
This says, defined social and emotional learning, or SEL, more than 2 decades ago. Social and emotional learning is an integral part of education and human development. SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. Feel and show...
Hold on. Let's stop right there. You know, a lot of this stuff sounds like, yeah, okay, personal... What was it? Personal what? Empowerment or whatever? I forget the wording there, but personal something. Anyway, that sounded good.
Personal and collective goals.
I like personal goals, and there's nothing wrong with that, but collective goals... Now that makes me think, okay, this is some sort of government plot. They've got, certain things they want to accomplish. They want to inculcate the youth to believe in these collective goals.
Yeah, make them collectivists, kill the individual.
Yeah, who decides what the collective goals are?
Exactly.
The federal government?
Not you, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not the parents.
Just some authority that they're going to be given, any authority. Like when so basically... When I was watching this YouTube live today by the girl Carolyn, all the people in the comments, I was watching it the whole time, were basically like, oh, this is an outrage, this is, thinking it was new. And I commented on there, when I was a kid, I remember, this happening to me, which was basically, not that, it wasn't like, I didn't get a survey asking me this thing, but I was explaining, ever since I was, I can remember in school, I've been told, you get the training to be in a hive mind, to not be an individual. If you're the smartest kid, always raise your hand. The teacher's going to be like, can somebody other than Bonnie raise her hand? If you're, talking, the teacher's going to be like, everybody has to be quiet because Diego's talking.
Right.
We're going to turn off the lights and everybody must be silent.
They did that back when I was in school, too.
They always
punished
did
the
that to
whole
me.
class for what one person did.
And,
that way they would get the class to turn on the person.
Yeah.
Right? It's a social thing.
It's a thing to create collectivism.
It's messed up.
And to get rid of the individual.
Well, as you say, this has been going on for a long time.
But now they're putting a name to it. It's really insidious and creepy that they're like coming out with it. And one person that commented did make a good point when I said, why do you think they're coming out with this now instead of just doing it and not calling it anything? And somebody said, because the schools had to be done from home last year, so now they can't hide it. So they have to create this whole program to make it look like a good thing. So the CASEL, or SEL, Social Emotional Learning, is basically like they're just going to turn it up a notch and make you think it's a good thing. Oh, we're us teachers, we've come together and we're going to teach in a better way where we involve, social and emotional learning to, they said that they're going to create, okay, so in this live, she was playing a video of a group of teachers yesterday who were all behind this, like teachers union and educators,
of course,
whatever,
the teachers union is going to be all
principals
about this.
or whatever. And they were like having a Zoom meeting and they were talking about SEL and how they're going to implement it. One of the teachers was like, I like to share my personal struggles with the students, and that way we can all learn together how we have a responsibility to shoulder each other's issues. Do you want to hear about your teacher's issues and feel like you have a responsibility to shoulder your teacher's issues at school?
Whatever happened to reading, writing, and arithmetic?
Exactly.
You're so old-fashioned. Now we need to have straight-up indoctrination with government propaganda and collective goals. And you said later that they get into, like, admitting that this is all about turning kids into little activists.
Yeah,
right?
They said that they want to be able to steer kids and give them the tools they need to. They didn't call it activism. But it was such a weird. It was like get involved in civic change.
That's the same thing.
But they want to give
code.
them. Yeah, they want to give them the tools to do it. I can't remember exactly how they said it, but. Yeah, if you go to that girl's YouTube video and watch her live from today, it's really creepy. Like, one of the teachers was saying, what we're going to do in my class is whenever we join together and tell each other all of our issues and all of our freaking personal details, we're creating a family.
You know, this is just so creepy. I remember getting upset when we had I think it was a health class, and they wanted us to keep track of, like, our diet. And I'm like, and you want us to submit, like, what we ate to you? Like, what, isn't that such an invasion of privacy?
None of your business.
Right? It's none of your business, exactly. and to think like they're like trying to go like on like that on steroids.
Yeah, they're taking that to a new level, for sure. You know, the propaganda on this Cassell website is pretty disturbing. It's based out of Chicago. They have a whole section called systemic implementation. So they want this thing throughout the educational system. And look, you can go into the stupid school board meetings and yell and rant and stomp your feet all you want about this, but you're just going to spend so much time and energy fighting this thing that they are going to cram down, whether you like it or not. The best thing you can do is get your kids out of these government schools.
Yep. If you haven't noticed, this is what it's been about since public schools got created. It's not going to get any better.
That's true.
Just because they're coming outright talking about it. Yep.
All right, out of time tonight. Join us tomorrow night. Online in the meantime, freetalklive.com. Check out more of Chris on his show, Freedom Decrypted, at freedomdecrypted.com. We'll see you tomorrow.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available